Chapter 868. Thinking of this, Yichen raised his right hand toward the pile of items that the middle-aged man had dropped. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Hundreds of air-piercing sounds were heard, and then 120 essence cleansing stones and 120 marrow cleansing stones flew straight toward Yichen. Seeing this, Yichen waved his right hand and instantly collected all the essence cleansing stones and marrow cleansing stones into the small world. Glancing at the essence cleansing stones and marrow cleansing stones in the small world, Yichen could not help but raise his eyebrows. Damn it, I thought I could only get 2. Who would have thought that there were so many? This way, not only the people in the reincarnation immortal city, but also the soldiers under my command would be able to complete the marrow cleansing process before the entire country ascends. Even if all the people in the Great Han Dynasty were to complete the marrow cleansing process, it would not be impossible. If all the people in the Great Han Dynasty completed marrow cleansing, it would not be a problem for them to establish a foothold in the untainted world after they went to the untainted land. Taking a bath in the water with the essence cleansing stones and marrow cleansing stones could strengthen the body and improve the bone structure. For mortals, they were rare treasures. However, the problem was that the amount of water created by the essence cleansing stone and the marrow cleansing stone with the function of marrow cleansing was only as much as the lake in the secret realm. Moreover, the process of marrow cleansing could not be completed in one go. It needed to be done many times. This could be easily seen from young Master Zhang and the middle-aged man in the secret realm, who was very likely to be young Master Zhang's father. As for how to look at it, it was very simple. The bone structure and the realm. If the lake containing the essence cleansing stones and marrow cleansing stones could quickly complete the process of marrow cleansing, then young Master Zhang and the middle-aged man in the secret realm would not have the bone structure of a mortal, and their strength would not be as simple as that of an emperor-level general or an emperor-level general. It was precisely because of the limitations of the essence cleansing stones and marrow cleansing stones that Yichen was happy to get more essence cleansing stones and marrow cleansing stones by accident. After all, when Yichen ascended, he was going to take all the people of the Great Han Dynasty with him. If the bone structure of all the people in the Great Han Dynasty could be improved, then the power of Yichen's Samsara Empire would increase by a large margin. How could this not be a good thing for Yichen, who walked the path of the sovereign path of destiny? Thinking of this, Yichen could not help but smirk. He then looked at the lake in the secret realm. In the next second, Yichen grabbed the air with his right hand, and the essence cleansing stone and the marrow cleansing stone flew out of the lake and came to Yichen's side. After glancing at the 2 stones, Yichen waved his right hand and kept them in his small world. Now that he was done here, it was time to head to the Luo city's Wang clan and the Shun city's Lu clan to take away all of the Great Annihilation divine talismans. Thinking of this, Yichen could not help but raise his eyebrows. Then, with a thought, he released his divine sense and shrouded the entire secret realm in an instant. Yichen did this to prevent himself from letting go of any good things because of his carelessness. Just as Yichen's divine sense swept through the secret realm and was about to withdraw it, he suddenly froze. Something was wrong with that tattered cloth bag. Thinking of this, Yichen looked directly at the middle-aged man's items that were scattered all over the ground because of his death. Then, he raised his right hand and grabbed the air. With a whoosh, a tattered cloth bag instantly flew out of the mess of items and came to Yichen's right hand. Glancing at the tattered cloth bag, Yichen's divine sense moved and rushed straight into the tattered cloth bag in his hand. At this moment, Yichen's divine sense rushed straight into a space that was only 1 cubic meter in size. Damn, it was really a usable storage bag. In Yichen's previous life, low-level storage equipment like storage bags only appeared after players ascended to the primordial world. Moreover, they appeared very easily. That was because they could be dropped by randomly killing monsters. However, no matter how easy it was for storage bags to appear, none of them were tattered. The storage bag that the middle-aged man had dropped was really too tattered. Not only were there holes everywhere, it was also ridiculously old. Logically speaking, Such a storage bag could not possibly have a storage function. It was also because of this reason that Yi Chun immediately ignored the tattered cloth bag that was mixed among the items. Fortunately, Yi Chun then remembered that the middle-aged man in the secret realm was very likely young Master Zhang's father. Such an existence would not keep a useless tattered cloth bag. It was precisely because Yi Chun had thought of this that he didn't miss out on the storage pouch that looked shabby but could actually be used normally. Thinking of this, Yi Chun looked directly at the blue bottle in the storage bag and the hundreds of jade talismans beside the bottle. The jade talisman was the Great Annihilation Talisman, and this bottle, it should be the glazed soul refining bottle that young Master Zhang had relied on to roam the primordial world in his previous life. This was not Yi Chun's wild guess. It was because when Yi Chun killed young Master Zhang previously, he did not see any bottle drop, nor did he see any storage equipment. What did this mean? Without a doubt, young Master Zhang did not have the glazed soul refining bottle with him at all. And now, Yi Chun saw a bottle in the tattered storage bag that the middle-aged man had dropped. How could he not think of the glazed soul refining bottle? Damn it. The glazed soul refining bottle was a treasure used to refine a ghost realm. It would be better to use it in the netherworld than in the primordial world. A ghost realm was essentially a ghost. If it was used in the primordial world, the ghost realm could only use its full strength at night. But in the netherworld, it was different. Because that was the home of the ghost realm, it could use its full strength at any time. It was also because of this reason that Yi Chun had the idea of using the glazed soul refining bottle in the netherworld. After all, Yi Chun had already planted Meng Pe and Lucifer in the netherworld. It was not that he did not have any manpower at his disposal. Thinking of this, Yi Chun's primordial spirit moved and instantly took out the bottle and jade talisman from the tattered storage bag. He then held the bottle in his hand. At this moment, the system's notification suddenly sounded. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun for obtaining a special treasure, the glazed soul refining bottle. The moment the system's notification ended, Yi Chun's lips curled up involuntarily. It was indeed the glazed soul refining bottle. Thinking of this, Yi Chun's primordial spirit moved. He then looked directly at the ground and said, Meng Pe. As soon as Yi Chun finished speaking, a black vortex suddenly appeared in the originally calm mystic realm. Meng Pe then slowly rose from the black vortex. Chapter 869. When Yi Chun saw this, he couldn't help but smile. Having a subordinate who could freely travel through the nether realm was so nice. Yi Chun's current cultivation wasn't enough to open up a passage to the nether realm. If Meng Pe couldn't leave the nether realm on her own, then Yi Chun would have to use the nether passage token. Moreover, he would have to wait for Meng Pe to find the passage to the nether realm created by the nether passage token before he could leave the nether realm. It could be said that this process was very troublesome and required a long time. It was precisely because of this that Yi Chun was so happy that Meng Pe could freely leave the nether realm. Just as Yi Chun thought of this, Meng Pe left the black whirlpool and arrived in front of Yi Chun in a few steps. Then she bowed to Yi Chun. Meng Pe greets the young master. May I know why the young master has summoned Meng Pe this time? I have a treasure for you. You can use it yourself or give it to Lucifer. When Yi Chun heard this, he glanced at Meng Pe and said. After he finished speaking, he waved his right hand and the glazed soul-refining bottle instantly flew to Meng Pe. When Meng Pe saw this, she raised her right hand and caught the glazed soul-refining bottle. Meng Pe was stunned when she saw the glazed soul-refining bottle in her hand. The glazed soul-refining bottle. When Yi Chun heard this, he smiled and said. When Meng Pe heard Yi Chun's words, she glanced at the glazed soul-refining bottle in her hand and then looked at Yi Chun. Young master, with this glazed soul-refining bottle, we can change our previous plan. When Yi Chun heard Meng Pe's question, he couldn't help but smile and say, I can't go to the nether realm for the time being. You have full authority to decide what to do. Meng Pe was in charge of fighting for Yi Chun's territory in the nether realm. How to fight and where to start was the best plan. Meng Pe definitely knew better than Yi Chun. It was precisely because of this reason that Yi Chun told Meng-Pa that everything in the nether realm would be decided by her. When Meng-Pa heard this, she nodded and said, "Thank you for your trust, young master. Meng-Pa will return now to deal with the ghost race." Okay. Hearing this, Yi Chun chuckled and nodded his head, then said. When Meng-Pa heard this, she bowed to Yi Chun. Then, her body turned into black gas and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. Looking at the place where Meng-Pa disappeared, Yi Chun couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to subdue Meng-Pa and obtain the glazed, soul-refining bottle. At this thought, Yi Chun couldn't help but smile and look at the shabby storage bag in his hand. There was something wrong with this storage bag. There were clearly holes everywhere, but they could still store items. Thinking of this, Yi Chun used his divine sense to check the storage bag. However, no matter how Yi Chun probed with his divine sense, he could not find anything unusual about the shabby storage bag. A few seconds later, Yi Chun couldn't help but frown. It was impossible that there was nothing unusual. Since his divine sense couldn't detect it, he would use his fiery eyes of truth. Thinking of this, Yi Chun's eyes widened. Tongue. Yi Chun's eyes burst into flames. Then, Yi Chun's eyes turned golden. In the next second, Yi Chun's fiery eyes of truth looked directly at the shabby storage bag. At this moment, the originally ordinary and worn-out storage bag suddenly changed in appearance. Then it turned into a toad with a body full of bumps. The moment he saw the toad, Yi Chun's eyes widened. Holy shit! The heaven-devouring demonic toad. The heaven-devouring demonic toad was one of the prehistoric beasts. When it grew to its limit, it could easily devour the heavens and the earth. It was also because of this ability that the heaven-devouring demonic toad was hunted down by countless powerful beings in the prehistoric world. It couldn't be helped. It had to be hunted down. This thing grew very quickly and was very destructive. If it was allowed to live, who knew how much damage it would cause to the prehistoric world? Damn, who would have thought that the heaven-devouring demonic toad not only had the ability to disguise itself, but could also stay in a player's storage bag without dying. If it wasn't for my fiery eyes of truth, I would have been fooled by it. Thinking of this, Yi Chun clenched his right hand tightly. Bang! A loud sound came. Then, the heaven-devouring demonic toad, disguised as a shabby storage bag, revealed its true form. Seeing this, Yi Chun couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Then he looked at the heaven-devouring demonic toad and said, "If you submit to me, submit to me. Submit to me, and you can live. Otherwise, die." When the heaven-devouring demonic toad heard this, its eyes narrowed and it began to struggle crazily. It was obvious that the heaven-devouring demonic toad didn't want to submit to Yi Chun. Otherwise, it wouldn't be like this. However, no matter how hard the heaven-devouring demonic toad struggled, it couldn't break free from Yi Chun's right hand. Seeing this, Yi Chun narrowed his eyes and said coldly, "Looks like you'd rather die than submit." Saying this, Yi Chun's right hand exerted more force. Then he saw the heaven-devouring demonic toad's eyes bulging. Croak! A deep, drum-like sound came from the heaven-devouring demonic toad's mouth. At the same time, a long, scarlet tongue shot out from the heaven-devouring demonic toad's mouth and shot toward Yi Chun. Seeing this, Yi Chun smiled coldly. Then, with a thought, a blood-red red lotus karmic fire appeared out of thin air and blocked the heaven-devouring demonic toad's long tongue. In the next second, the heaven-devouring demonic toad's long tongue collided with the red lotus karmic fire. Chi-la sound was heard. The heaven-devouring demonic toad's long tongue was instantly ignited by the red lotus karmic fire. Roar! A shrill cry was heard. At the same time, the heaven-devouring demonic toad, which was in great pain from being burned by the red lotus karmic fire, retracted its long tongue. However, it was too late because the red lotus karmic fire had begun to show its power. No matter what the heaven-devouring demonic toad did, it couldn't extinguish the red lotus karmic fire, one of the 10 most powerful flames in the untainted land. Just as the heaven-devouring demonic toad retracted its long tongue, the red lotus karmic fire burst out with a boom. Then, the heaven-devouring demonic toad in Yi Chen's right hand burned fiercely. A shrill cry was heard again. Roar! Hearing the heaven-devouring demonic toad's cry, Yi Chen raised his eyebrows and looked at the heaven-devouring demonic toad. Last chance, surrender or be destroyed. As soon as Yi Chen finished his words, the heaven-devouring demonic toad's two almost bulging eyes shook up and down hurriedly. Seeing this, Yi Chen couldn't help but smile. Success. Thinking of this, Yi Chen moved his mind, and a drop of blood essence flew out from Yi Chen's finger and flew straight to the heaven-devouring demonic toad's head. Just as Yi Chen's blood essence dripped onto the heaven-devouring demonic toad's head, a red light shone directly from the top of the heaven-devouring demonic toad's head. Then, Yi Chen's blood essence disappeared without a trace. Chapter 870. As Yi Chen's blood essence disappeared, a mysterious connection appeared between Yi Chen and the heaven-devouring demonic toad. At this moment, the system notification sounded. Ding! Congratulations to player for successfully taming the ancient beast, heaven-devouring demonic toad. As soon as the system notification ended, Yi Chen raised his eyebrows. Then, with a thought, he put away the red lotus fire that was burning the heaven-devouring demonic toad. At the same time, the heaven-devouring demonic toad let out a long sigh. Phew! Yi Chen glanced at the heaven-swallowing demonic toad, who had heaved a sigh of relief. Then he loosened his right hand and threw the heaven-swallowing demonic toad to the ground. In the next second, Yi Chen waved his right hand, and a pile of emerald bamboo shoots appeared and flew in front of the heaven-devouring demonic toad. The heaven-devouring demonic toad, who had just landed, widened its eyes when it saw this. Then it opened its mouth and sucked in the emerald bamboo shoots that flew in front of it. In the next second, hundreds of emerald bamboo shoots, which were more than 100 times the size of the heaven-devouring demonic toad, flew into the heaven-devouring demonic toad's stomach. When Yi Chen saw this, he couldn't help but smile. The heaven-devouring demonic toad was indeed the heaven-devouring demonic toad. This way of eating was really cruel, directly swallowing. He wondered if he would be able to swallow the Kuan Peng of the demon clan, but then again, his luck was really good this time. He got a lot of essence cleansing stones and marrow cleansing stones, and he even met a young heaven-devouring demonic toad. Not bad, not bad. The heaven-devouring demonic toad that Yi Chen had tamed was still in its infancy. Otherwise, Yi Chen wouldn't have been able to capture it so easily, let alone tame it. Of course, this was just a hypothesis. The truth was that the heaven-devouring demonic toad was in its infancy and had been tamed by Yi Chen. As for Yi Chen, he clearly knew that the heaven-swallowing demonic toad would not be accepted by the creatures of the untainted world, but he still tried to subdue it. This was because the heaven-swallowing demonic toad would grow up and become extremely powerful. It was a rare and powerful pet. If he could subdue it, Yi Chen would definitely not give it up casually, even if he would be hated by the creatures of the primordial world. Because of this, Yi Chen did not care. It should be known that even if Yi Chen did not subdue the heaven-swallowing demonic toad, Yi Chen would not have any friends in the untainted world. The reason was simple. Yi Chen walked the path of the royal path of providence. He was destined to fight in the primordial world. This would automatically bring about a result for Yi Chen, which was to make the entire world his enemy. Since they were all enemies, why should they care about this and that? As for the fact that the heaven-swallowing demonic toad would destroy the untainted world when it grew up, this would affect Yi Chen after he unified the untainted world. This was because Yi Chen had already subdued the heaven-swallowing demonic toad. Without Yi Chen's order, the heaven-swallowing demonic toad would not do something like devouring the sky and the earth in order to become stronger. Thinking of this, Yi Chen directly looked at the heaven-swallowing demonic toad and asked, "How did you appear in this world?" The heaven-swallowing demonic toad that Yi Chen had just subdued was one of the exotic beasts of the untainted world. Logically speaking, it was impossible for it to appear in the real world. Moreover, Yi Chun had never heard of the heaven-swallowing demonic toad in his previous life. But now, the heaven-swallowing demonic toad had appeared in the real world. How could Yi Chun not be puzzled? As soon as Yi Chun finished speaking, the heaven-swallowing demonic toad, who had regained much of its vitality after swallowing a pile of jadeite bamboo shoots, immediately looked at Yi Chun and then sent a message to Yi Chun. After receiving the message from the heaven-swallowing demonic toad, Yi Chun was instantly stunned. F***CK. It was actually because of the howling celestial dog. Previously, Yi Chun had led troops to attack the underground palace mystic realm for the 9 cauldrons of the ancient kingdom. At the last moment, Qin Shi Huang was ruthless and summoned the howling celestial dog. However, the howling celestial dog's body was too large. Coupled with the restrictions of the heavenly way, the howling celestial dog was stuck in the summoning channel and was then subdued by Yi Chun. Originally, Yi Chun thought that the matter was over. Who would have thought that when the howling celestial dog was summoned, there was a heaven-swallowing demonic toad's egg in the untainted world? In the end, the howling celestial dog responded to the summon and was stuck in the summoning channel. As for the heaven-swallowing demonic toad's egg, it came to the 3 kingdoms novice area. After that, the heaven-swallowing demonic toad was born. Then, it was coincidentally encountered by young Master Zhang's father from the Wuji Palace. In order to not be killed, the heaven-swallowing demonic toad disguised itself as a tattered cloth bag. Who would have thought that the heaven-swallowing demonic toad's wishful thinking would fail, because the place where young Master Zhang's father appeared was a forest where there were few people. It was obviously not normal to encounter a tattered cloth bag here. It was also because of this reason that young Master Zhang's father used the tattered cloth bag that the heaven-swallowing demonic toad transformed into as a necessary item to activate some mission. Then, he kept it in the storage space exclusive to players. The heaven-swallowing demonic toad stayed in the storage space for a few days. It was only when young Master Zhang's father took it out again that the heaven-swallowing demonic toad could go out for a breather. However, the problem was that young Master Zhang's father failed to activate any hidden mission after several attempts. In the end, he kept the heaven-swallowing demonic toad in the storage space again. This time it stayed for a long time. When young Master Zhang's father took out the tattered cloth bag that the heaven-swallowing demonic toad transformed into again and tried to activate the hidden mission, the heaven-swallowing demonic toad finally couldn't take it anymore. Therefore, it deliberately revealed the ability of its storage space. To be more precise, in front of young Master Zhang's father, it took a bottle of fine wine that he had accidentally found and put it into the storage space within its body. The heaven-swallowing demonic toad naturally did this because it wanted young Master Zhang's father to use it as a storage bag and carry it on his body. This way, the heaven-swallowing demonic toad wouldn't have to run into the storage space exclusive to players again. After all, there was no air, no water, no sunlight, no spirit energy, nothing. If it stayed there for a long time, even if the heaven-swallowing demonic toad had extraordinary talent, it would still die. Unfortunately, the heavens didn't let the heaven-swallowing demonic toad's wish. It was still kept in the storage space exclusive to players by young Master Zhang's father. However, fortunately, young Master Zhang's father would take it out of the storage space from time to time and then put valuable items into the storage space within its body. Just like that, the heaven-swallowing demonic toad lived until now. Then, it met Yi Chun and was finally seen through by Yi Chun and subdued. Feeling the memories from the heaven-swallowing demonic toad, Yi Chun looked at the heaven-swallowing demonic toad sympathetically and then said, "You're really pitiful." As soon as Yi Chun's words fell, the heaven-swallowing demonic toad's two-toed eyes suddenly revealed a resentful gaze. When Yi Chun saw this, he couldn't help but smile and then said, "The past is gone. Don't think about it anymore. As long as you cultivate diligently and work hard for me, I won't treat you unfairly. However, there's one thing that you have to remember. When you become stronger in the future, without my command, you can't use your devouring talent recklessly." Chapter 871. The heaven-devouring demonic toad liked to devour everything. Yichen didn't want to see this happen. Otherwise, Yichen wouldn't have given the heaven-devouring demonic toad an order. The heaven-devouring demonic toad hurriedly nodded as soon as Yichen finished speaking. The heaven-devouring demonic toad had already recognized Yichen as its master. Naturally, it didn't dare to disobey Yichen's order, even though it was born to devour everything. When Yichen saw this, he nodded in satisfaction. He then waved his right hand and instantly kept the heaven-devouring demonic toad in his small world. The heaven-devouring demonic toad's current realm was pitifully low. It couldn't even defeat ordinary monsters. Therefore, it couldn't return to the Eldritch world. Otherwise, Yichen would definitely let the heaven-devouring demonic toad go directly to the Eldritch world instead of keeping it in his small world. As for the reason, it was very simple. The Eldritch world was full of treasures. It could allow the heaven-devouring demonic toad to grow rapidly. However, the real world and the Three Kingdoms novice area couldn't do this at all. Looking at the heaven-devouring demonic toad that was kept in his small world, Yichen couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. This was a good harvest. Next, it was time to collect interest from the Luo City's Wang clan and the Shun City's Lu clan. Thinking of this, Yichen walked straight to the exit of the Mystic Realm. In the blink of an eye, he appeared outside. Looking at the limitless city that was in a mess and full of charred corpses, Yichen smiled coldly. Then, with a thought, he instantly released his divine sense. After a few breaths, Yichen's eyes widened. It should be there. Thinking of this, Yichen's mind moved, and the space in front of him instantly distorted. After glancing at the distorted space, Yichen stepped into it and disappeared. Luo City, Monarch City, City Lord Mansion. Dad, didn't we just sell 300 Great Annihilation Divine Talismans? Do you have to be so angry? A young man in his 20s glanced at the middle-aged man, sitting in the main seat with an ashen face, and asked indifferently. When the middle-aged man heard this, his ashen face instantly turned even more ashen. In the next second, the middle-aged man raised the teacup in his hand and smashed it at the young man. When the young man saw this, he was stunned. Then, he hurriedly got up and hid to the side. Pa! A crisp sound was heard. The teacup smashed into the chair the young man was sitting on and shattered. Glancing at the shattered pieces of porcelain on the chair, the young man looked at the middle-aged man in disbelief. Dad, you hit me? When the middle-aged man heard this, he became even more furious. Then, he suddenly stood up and arrived in front of the young man in a few steps. Then, he grabbed the young man's collar. In the next second, the middle-aged man pulled the young man in front of him and then shouted sternly, "Hit you? I can't wait to slaughter you. Do you have any fucking idea what you've done? That's the Great Annihilation Talisman, the foundation of our Wang family. Without it, our Wang family is nothing. With it, others will fear our Wang family. You, on the other hand, gave someone 300 Great Annihilation Talismans for a woman. Dad, that's no ordinary woman. She's a member of the Beauty Alliance. As long as we take her down, our Wang family can plant a spy in the Beauty Alliance. Then, we can take over the entire Beauty Alliance." The young man hurriedly shouted when he heard this. When a middle-aged man heard the young man's words, he was stunned. Then, with a swoosh, his face darkened. "Bastard, don't you know that those women in the Beauty Alliance can't be touched?" When the middle-aged man finished speaking, the young man immediately panicked and shouted, I know, but Dad, think about it carefully. If our plan succeeds, the entire Beauty's Alliance will be in our pocket. At that time, as long as Yichen sleeps with those women in the Beauty Alliance, Yichen will be dead for sure. At that time, won't everything that belongs to Yichen be ours? When the middle-aged man heard this, he immediately fell silent. After a moment, the middle-aged man released the young man's collar and asked, "What did you exchange with her for? What position does she hold in the Beauty Alliance?" When the young man heard this, his face lit up and he hurriedly said, "She's a hall leader." "What's her name?" When the middle-aged man heard this, he nodded and asked, "You didn't touch her, right?" When the young man heard this, he hurriedly shook his head and said, "No, Dad. I spent so much money to buy her. How could I touch her so easily? I'm still counting on her to control the beauty alliance and charm Yi-chun. When the middle-aged man heard this, he nodded emotionally. Then, he looked at the young man and said, "You've finally grown up." When the young man heard this, he was overjoyed and said proudly, "Dad, I'll go give her the medicine now. I guarantee that she'll be obediently under our control in less than an hour." When the middle-aged man heard this, he nodded and said, "Go now. This matter can't be delayed. If you're late and Yi-chun notices this, or if Yi-chun hears something, you'll be in danger." As soon as the middle-aged man finished speaking, the space in the hall suddenly began to distort. Then, Yi-chun stepped out and appeared here. When the young man who was about to respond to the middle-aged man saw this, he was stunned and then shouted in shock, "Yi-chun!" When the young man finished speaking, the middle-aged man didn't hesitate and directly took out a stack of great annihilation talismans. When Yi-chun saw this, he smiled coldly and grabbed at the air with his right hand. In an instant, he forcibly took the great annihilation talismans from the middle-aged man. "Run!" When the middle-aged man sensed that the great annihilation talismans were taken away by Yi-chun before they could be activated, his expression changed, and he hurriedly shouted at the young man, "You want to run after scheming against me?" When he thought of this, Yi-chun smiled coldly and waved his right hand. The thick black Godslayer instantly appeared. In the next second, Yi-chun stabbed the Godslayer in his right hand twice. Poochie, poochie. The middle-aged man and the young man's heads were instantly pierced by the Godslayer, and they died on the spot. What was different from the deaths of ordinary people was that the souls of these two people had disappeared. This was because the Godslayer's soul-devouring ability had been activated. Yi-chun curled his lips in disdain as he glanced at the dead Wong clan's father and son. Two idiots. Not only did they think that I was related to the Beauty Alliance, they even wanted to use this to scheme against me. If I don't destroy their souls, how can I vent my anger? When he thought of this, Yi-chun smiled coldly. Then, with a thought, the sound of thunder that shook the heavens and the earth was instantly heard. Kaboom! Kaboom! Chapter 872. Hundreds of thousands of lightning bolts appeared out of thin air and struck directly at the great king city, as well as all the members of the Wong clan and their subordinates. At this moment, the world lit up and lightning danced wildly. Boom! 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 After a series of explosions, the Wong clan's great king city was instantly razed to the ground. The Wong clan members and their underlings all died on the spot without exception. Looking at the messy great king city, Yi-chun raised his right hand and grabbed at the items dropped by the Wong clan father and son after they died. Whoosh! 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 Thousands of great annihilation divine talismans appeared in an instant and flew directly toward Yi-chun. Looking at the thousands of great annihilation divine talismans that came to him, Yi-chun couldn't help but frown. Why were there so few? In his previous life, the great annihilation divine talismans had been used at least tens of thousands of times. Now, Yi-chun only found a total of 3,281 great annihilation divine talismans in the Wong clan of Luo City. This number was seriously lower than the number of great annihilation divine talismans that Yi-chun knew. Otherwise, Yi-chun wouldn't be puzzled. Thinking of this, Yi-chun waved his right hand and instantly kept the 3,281 great annihilation divine talismans into his small dimension. In the next second, with a single thought, Yi-chun released his divine consciousness and enveloped the messy great king city. After checking back and forth 3 times and confirming that he didn't miss anything, Yi-chun frowned again. Could it be that most of the great annihilation divine talismans were with the Lu clan of Shun City? Probably so, but first he had to take away the large underground spirit stone mine. Just as Yi-chun thought of this, a cry of disbelief and surprise suddenly sounded. You have beach. The person who spoke was Wong Ming from Beauty's Alliance. She had met Yi-chun a few times before. If Yi-chun hadn't purposely avoided Wong Ming's position, she would have been killed by the lightning. As for Yi-chun's deliberate choice of location for Wong Ming, It was not because Yi Chen's heart softened after knowing Wang Mengmeng. It was because Wang Mengmeng had no enmity towards Yi Chen and had never gone against Yi Chen before. Yi Chen would not casually make a move against such a person. When Yi Chen heard this, he glanced at Wang Mengmeng, a core member of the Beauty's Alliance who had been deliberately spared. Go back by yourself. You don't have to tell me anything else. Mengmeng, thank you, Lord Yu of Beach, for saving my life. If you have any errands in the future, Mengmeng will definitely do my best. When Wang Mengmeng heard this, she was momentarily stunned. However, she quickly regained her senses and solemnly bowed towards Yi Chen. Yi Chen nodded and waved his right hand. The space in front of Wang Mengmeng instantly distorted. Go in. As soon as Yi Chen finished speaking, Wang Mengmeng was stunned again. She bowed again to Yi Chen before walking into the distorted space and disappearing. After glancing at the place where Wang Mengmeng had disappeared, Yi Chen immediately soared into the air and instantly reached a height of 1,000 meters. In the next second, Yi Chen's eyes narrowed. He raised his right hand and slapped the air in the direction of the Wang clan's royal city, which had been reduced to ruins and thick smoke. Boom! A visible white wave of air instantly exploded in Yi Chen's right hand and surged out. At the same time, a solid shadow of a palm instantly appeared and rapidly slammed into the ground. At this moment, the solid shadow of the palm expanded with the wind. In the blink of an eye, it had covered the entire royal city. Just as the shadow of the palm covered the entire royal city, an extremely violent aura exploded from the shadow of the palm. Boom! The giant palm that covered the entire royal city violently slammed into the royal city that had been reduced to ruins and was now covered in thick smoke. At this moment, the ground shook. Then, smoke and dust rose from the ground and surged in all directions. At a height of 1,000 meters, Yi Chen retracted his right hand. The giant palm that covered the entire royal city instantly disappeared, revealing the royal city that had been reduced to dust. Seeing this, Yi Chen waved his right hand, and a gust of wind instantly appeared. Then, it swept wildly towards the royal city that had completely disappeared on the ground. A second later, the gust of wind descended. Boom! 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 The sound of the gust of wind was heard immediately. At the same time, the dust on the ground was directly swept up by the gust of wind and whizzed into the distance. After 10 minutes, the dust on the ground at the royal city had turned into disappeared without a trace. Then, a rugged underground stone layer of different sizes was revealed. Seeing this, Yi Chen couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. The royal clan was really pitiful. There was obviously a large spiritual mine underground, but they didn't know about it. However, it was good for him. Thinking of this, Yi Chen raised his right hand and flicked his fingers continuously. Dense air-piercing sounds were heard instantly. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Countless space blades appeared out of thin air and slashed toward the ground. In the blink of an eye, dense tearing sounds were heard from the ground. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. When the sound stopped, Yi Chen's eyes narrowed. His right hand formed into a claw and sucked towards the ground. Boom! A loud sound was heard. An extremely huge stone mountain directly rose from the ground. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the hidden mountain completely left the ground. Looking at the mountain that had left the ground, Yi Chen nodded in satisfaction. The quality of this spiritual mine wasn't low. Most of it was superior-grade spirit stones. This time, the soldiers under me are in for a treat. Spirit stones contained large amounts of pure spirit chi. The higher the grade, the more spirit chi it contained. If it was an ordinary soldier, naturally, they wouldn't be able to use spirit stones because they couldn't break through the restrictions of the heavenly Tao in the novice zone of the three kingdoms. At most, their cultivation level would be at the peak of the saint level. And if they wanted to use spirit stones, their cultivation level would have to be at least the mortal evolution state. Therefore, ordinary soldiers couldn't use spirit stones, but Yi Chen's soldiers weren't ordinary. To be precise, it was Yi Chen's Samsara Legion and the White Horse Legion. The soldiers of these two legions were different from ordinary soldiers. As for the reason, it was very simple. The soldiers of these two legions had obtained the special title of Heavenly Soldier when they were in the secret realm of the Underground Palace. With this title, regardless of whether it was the Samsara Legion or the White Horse Legion, they could ignore the restrictions of the heavenly Tao in the novice zone of the Three Kingdoms and increase their strength as they wished. Otherwise, how could the soldiers of the Samsara Legion and the White Horse Legion have all broken through to the mortal evolution state? It was precisely because the soldiers of the Samsara Legion and the White Horse Legion weren't restricted by the heavenly Tao in the novice zone of the Three Kingdoms and had all reached the mortal evolution state that Yi Chun was happy to obtain so many spirit stones. After all, with the help of spirit stones, even if the Samsara Legion and the White Horse Legion didn't go to the real world, their strength could still increase rapidly. And the more the strength of his army soared, the more help it would be to Yi Chun. How could Yi Chun not like this result? Thinking about this, Yi Chun raised his brows. Then, he used his right hand again. Boom! A loud sound could be heard. The mountain that contained the spirit stone instantly accelerated and flew toward Yi Chun. Chapter 873. When a huge mountain containing the spirit mine reached Yi Chun's side, it disappeared without a trace. Yi Chun glanced at the spirit mine mountain that had been sucked into his small world. With a thought, the space in front of him instantly distorted. It was time to visit the Liu family in Shun City. Thinking up to here, Yi Chun took a step into the distorted space and disappeared. Shun City, Liu clan's territory, Roaring Tiger City, City Lord Mansion, Main Hall. You still haven't found out? A white-haired old man, sitting in the main seat, frowned and asked after hearing the report from a middle-aged man. When the middle-aged man heard this, he nodded and said, "Father, we've used a lot of manpower and connections, but we still haven't found the true buyer of the Great Annihilation Divine Talisman. There aren't many people who can do this. Why don't you start from this?" The white-haired old man frowned and asked. When the middle-aged man heard this, he hurriedly said, "Father, before the meteor fell, there were quite a few clans like our Liu clan that also obtained opportunities. Furthermore, many of them were stronger than our Liu clan. For example, the Gongsun clan has the geomagnetic lightning bomb, which is even more powerful than our Great Annihilation Talisman. Also, they seem to have obtained a lot of spiritual herbs. There are countless families as powerful as the Gongsun family, or even more powerful than the Gongsun family. What are you trying to say? Even if others knew, they wouldn't tell us?" The white-haired old man's face darkened when he heard this. When the middle-aged man heard this, he was stunned. Then, he looked at the white-haired old man in confusion. The white-haired old man glanced at the middle-aged man and then said, "There are many clans that are stronger than us, but so what? In this world, as long as there are enough benefits, you can get everything you want, including secrets. Father, I know that. I promised many clans that as long as there is accurate information, I can provide 100 Great Annihilation Divine Talismans. But even so, no one knows who bought the Great Annihilation Divine Talismans." When the middle-aged man heard this, he hurriedly said. When the white-haired old man heard this, he snorted and then said, "If 100 isn't enough, then 500. If 500 isn't enough, then 1,000. Why didn't you raise the price? Father, why must you find out who bought the Great Annihilation Divine Talisman?" The middle-aged man frowned and asked. When the white-haired old man heard this, he glanced at the middle-aged man and asked, "Don't tell me you still don't understand." "Understand what?" The middle-aged man was stunned for a moment before he asked. At this moment, a young man walked in and looked at the middle-aged man. "Father, grandfather is saying that someone is plotting against our Liu clan. Otherwise, why would he directly propose to exchange so many spiritual herbs and Xiantian martial arts for the Great Annihilation Divine Talismans after hearing our refusal? Furthermore, he only exchanged 100 of them." When middle-aged man heard this, his face immediately sank. However, before he could get angry, the white-haired old man interrupted him. "You're already so old, but you're still not as clear as my grandson. You've played with too many women these years, and your brain has gone silly. Father, when the middle-aged man heard this, he immediately panicked and shouted, Enough! I don't want to listen to your explanation. What you need to do now is to find out who did it as soon as possible. Otherwise, when danger comes and we don't know it, everything will be too late. When the white-haired old man heard this, he snorted and shouted. As soon as the white-haired old man finished speaking, the space in the hall suddenly distorted. Then, they saw Yi-chun take a step forward and appear here. When the middle-aged man who was about to reply saw this, he was stunned and his eyes suddenly shrank. Yi-chun. As soon as the middle-aged man finished speaking, the white-haired old man and the young man's body trembled at the same time. At this moment, the white-haired old man suddenly thought of something and his face immediately turned pale. In the next second, the white-haired old man hurriedly bowed to Yi-chun and said loudly, This old man pays his respects to you, Lord Beach. No matter why you, Lord Beach, is here, this old man is willing to swear on his head that I, the Lu family of Shunsheng, have no enmity towards you, Lord Beach. If you, Lord Beach, is unhappy because of the great annihilation divine talisman, I, the Lu family, am willing to give up everything, just to appease you, Lord Beach. As soon as the white-haired old man finished speaking, the young man's eyes shrank, and then he shouted in shock. So that bastard wants to scheme against us like this. When the white-haired old man heard this, he did not hesitate to slap the young man. After a paw sound, the white-haired old man shouted at the young man, Impudent! Quickly come over and greet me. When the young man who was slapped heard this, he immediately came back to his senses and hurriedly followed the middle-aged man who also came back to his senses. They bowed solemnly to Yi-chun and said, Greetings to you, Lord Beach. When Yi-chun heard this, he glanced at the white-haired old man, the middle-aged man, and the young man, and then said, Hand over all the great annihilation divine talismans. In addition, have everyone leave this place in 3 minutes. I need to take something. Yi-chun naturally heard the conversation between the Lu family of Shunsheng. However, Yi-chun would not let them off so easily just because they showed no enmity. If they wanted to blame someone, they could only blame themselves for selling 100 great annihilation divine talismans. Moreover, they were used in the Imperial Palace assassination. As soon as Yi-chun finished speaking, the middle-aged man and the young man's expressions suddenly changed. However, the white-haired old man calmly bowed to Yi-chun and said, Yes, you Lord Beach. After the white-haired old man finished speaking, he immediately took off the ring on his right hand and handed it to Yi-chun with incomparable respect. When Yi-chun saw this, he glanced at the white-haired old man, and then his right hand made a suction force and instantly grabbed the ring in his hand. At this moment, the white-haired old man looked at the middle-aged man and the young man and said, Take all of them out. Don't leave a single one behind. If you dare to leave even a single one behind, you will be directly removed from the Lu family's genealogy. When the middle-aged man and the young man heard this, a trace of struggle flashed across their faces. However, the two of them immediately calmed down and then made a gesture in unison, each summoning a stack of great annihilation divine talismans. In the next second, the two of them raised the great annihilation divine talismans in their hands and then bowed to Yi-chun. You Lord Beach, these are our great annihilation divine talismans. Please accept them. When Yi-chun saw this, he made a suction force with his right hand and instantly sucked the great annihilation divine talismans from the two of them, and then kept them in the small world. Glancing at the ring in his hand, Yi-chun's eyes narrowed, and he instantly used the fiery eyes of truth by Yi-chun. At this moment, Yi-chun's eyes suddenly emitted 2 balls of flames, and his eyes directly lit up with a golden light. In the next second, the situation inside the ring handed over by the white-haired old man directly appeared in Yi-chun's vision. When Yi-chun saw the pitch-black statue that was filled with an evil aura in the space inside the ring, his eyes suddenly widened. Soul-absorbing divine statue. I was wondering why it was so cooperative. It turns out that it was waiting for me here. Chapter 874. When Yi-chun first appeared, the white-haired old man's attitude was extremely submissive. He even took the initiative to hand over his storage ring and asked his son and grandson to hand over the Great Annihilation Talisman. In that instant, Yi-chun even felt that the 3 generations of the Liu clan were afraid of him and didn't want to lose their lives. That was why they were doing this. Fortunately, Yi-chun didn't let his guard down because of this. He used his golden eyes, fiery eyes, to check the storage ring of the white-haired old man and found the trap in the storage ring, which was the soul-absorbing statue. Others didn't know what the soul-absorbing statue was, but how could Yi-chun not know? In Yi-chun's previous life, the soul-absorbing statue was an existence that devoured the souls of millions of players. If Yi-chun didn't check the storage ring with his golden eyes, fiery eyes, and directly used his divine sense to enter the storage ring and take out the Great Annihilation Talisman, then even if Yi-chun was in the tribulation stage, his primordial spirit would have been sucked away by the soul-absorbing statue. If Yi-chun's primordial spirit was sucked away by the soul-absorbing statue, the result would be very simple. Yi-chun would be completely dead. This wasn't an exaggeration, but because the soul-absorbing statue hid the remnant consciousness of the innate god-fiend. That's right, it was a remnant consciousness. It wasn't a remnant soul or a broken primordial spirit. But even if it was a remnant consciousness, its ability to absorb souls was real. Even an earth immortal would be affected and have his soul sucked away if he wasn't careful. If even an earth immortal was affected, how could Yi-chun, a cultivator in the tribulation stage, be lucky enough to survive if he was affected? Damn bastard, you want to scheme against me. At the thought of this, Yi-chun narrowed his eyes and a cold light flashed in his eyes. In the next second, an extremely violent, murderous aura exploded. Boom! A violent airflow appeared out of nowhere from Yi-chun's body and blew out. In the blink of an eye, the furniture in the hall of the City Lord Mansion was blown up and hit the wall. Bang, bang, bang. After a series of collisions, the expressions of the white-haired old man, the middle-aged man, and the young man all changed. The next second, the white-haired old man pretended to be calm as he looked at Yi-chun. Then, he bowed to Yi-chun and said, "I'm sorry. You Lord Beach, what is the meaning of this? What do you mean?" When Yi-chun heard this, he sneered. Then, with a wave of his right hand, the thick black Godslayer appeared instantly. Seeing Yi-chun suddenly summon the Godslayer, the expressions of the white-haired old man, the middle-aged man, and the young man changed drastically. At the same time, the white-haired old man roared at the middle-aged man and the young man. "Run! Wanna run?" When Yi-chun heard this, he snorted coldly and thrust out the Godslayer with his right hand. Poochie! The thick black Godslayer instantly pierced through the white-haired old man's heart. In an instant, bright red blood flowed out from the tip of the Godslayer. At the same time, the Godslayer flashed with black light and instantly devoured the white-haired old man's soul. If it were an ordinary enemy, Yi-chun would have killed him, but he wouldn't have destroyed the enemy's soul. But the white-haired old man of the Liu clan was different. He wanted to scheme against Yi-chun, and it was a very vicious scheme. How could Yi-chun show mercy to such a person? To be more precise, not only would Yi-chun kill him, but he would also destroy his soul and not give him a chance to reincarnate. To be more precise, he would completely destroy him and make him disappear forever. "Father! Grandfather!" After 2 cries of alarm, the middle-aged man and the young man glared fiercely at Yi-chun, then simultaneously summoned a jade slip. A greater teleportation jade slip? Thinking of this, Yi-chun smiled coldly, then raised his left hand and sucked in the air. With 2 whooshing sounds, the 2 greater teleportation jade slips that were just about to be activated instantly flew towards Yi-chun and were caught by Yi-chun. Seeing the greater teleportation jade slips in their hands being taken away by Yi-chun, the middle-aged man and the young man's expressions changed drastically. At this moment, Yi-chun casually pulled out the Godslayer's right hand, then stabbed out twice with the spear. When the middle-aged man and the young man saw this, their eyes narrowed and they hurriedly jumped to dodge. They didn't want to die, especially if they were killed by the Godslayer, because they knew very well that the people killed by the Godslayer weren't just simply dead, It was a death that would destroy even their soul. However, just as the Liu clan's father and son were about to dodge, they suddenly discovered a terrifying fact that they couldn't accept. They couldn't move. When the father and son realized this fact, their already pale faces instantly became even paler. Not only that, their faces were instantly covered in a layer of cold sweat. Just as the two of them opened their mouths and were about to beg for mercy, the sound of two bodies being pierced directly rang out. Poochie, poochie. Without exception, a huge hole was pierced through the hearts of the Liu clan's father and son. At the same time, the Godslayer's black light flashed twice in a row and directly devoured the souls of the Liu clan's father and son. Glancing at the Liu clan's 3 dead bodies, Yichen curled his lips in disdain. They had a chance to live, yet they didn't cherish it and thought themselves clever. At this moment, the sound of 3 bodies exploding suddenly rang out. Bang, bang, bang. The white-haired old man, the middle-aged man, and the young man's bodies suddenly exploded, and then pieces of flesh and blood splattered all over the sky. At this moment, a strong smell of blood directly rose up. Glancing at the pieces of flesh and blood all over the ground, Yi Chun smiled coldly, then looked directly at the storage ring in his hand that had belonged to the white-haired old man. If the information about the soul-assimilating statue that had spread among the players in his previous life wasn't wrong, the soul-assimilating statue should need its owner to activate this soul-assimilating characteristic. Now that the 3 generations of the Liu clan have been killed by me, the soul-assimilating statue should have no owner, so it shouldn't automatically activate the soul-assimilating characteristic. However, it's better to be safe than sorry. Thinking of this, Yi Chun threw his right hand into the air, and the storage ring instantly flew into the air. Seeing this, Yi Chun's right hand immediately bent and flicked. With a buzzing sound, a crescent-shaped space blade instantly appeared, and then directly cut at the storage ring in midair. With a slash sound, the storage ring was instantly cut in half by the space blade. At this moment, a large number of items fell from midair. Looking at the large number of items that had fallen due to the destruction of the storage ring, Yi Chun's mind moved, and a layer of demonic blood-red flames appeared with a boom on Yi Chun's body, and then firmly enveloped Yi Chun. Yi Chun had released the Red Lotus Hellfire. As for the purpose of this, naturally, it was to prevent the soul-assimilating statue from launching an attack, even without its owner. In the next second, Yi Chun's right hand pointed at the jade talismans among the items that had fallen to the ground. Then, a total of more than 50,000 Great Annihilation Divine Talismans flew directly out of the miscellaneous items and directly toward Yi Chun. When all the Great Annihilation Divine Talismans were 1 meter away from Yi Chun, they directly disappeared. At this moment, the sound of objects falling to the ground was instantly heard, and then a black ripple suddenly appeared on the soul-assimilating statue that had fallen to the ground, and then directly spread out. Chapter 875. Yi Chun, who had been keeping his eyes on the soul-absorbing statue, widened his eyes in shock. Damn it, rumors really can't be trusted. Luckily, I've taken precautions in advance. Just as Yi Chun thought of this, the rapidly spreading black ripples collided with the Red Lotus Hellfire barrier that Yi Chun had set up as a precaution. A violent explosion rang out as the black ripples collided with the Red Lotus Hellfire barrier. Boom! The sound of the explosion was extremely loud, like the deafening thunder from the 9 heavens. The fire barrier formed by the karmic fire of the Red Lotus shattered. Seeing this, Yi Chun's eyes narrowed. F***CK. After Yi Chun cursed angrily, he did not even think. The god-killing spear in his right hand smashed towards the black ripples that were about to touch his body. Boom! The air exploded as the Godslayer attacked violently. At the same time, a mysterious aura appeared from the Godslayer's body. Then, the black light on the Godslayer's body flashed. No! A roar of disbelief and panic rang out instantly. At this moment, the thick black Godslayer suddenly shook. Then, the black ripples that flew out from the soul-absorbing statue suddenly rushed towards the God-slayer. Seeing this, Yi-chun heaved a sigh of relief. Damn it! Luckily, the God-slayer's soul-devouring ability was activated. Otherwise, even if I didn't die, I would have been seriously injured. The last ability of the God-slayer was to kill gods. It could kill primordial spirits. However, the stronger the being that was attacked by the God-slayer, the less likely it was that the primordial spirit would be killed. At this moment, although the remnant spirit hidden in the soul-absorbing statue was not a primordial spirit, it was still a part of the primordial spirit. Therefore, the God-slayer's soul-devouring ability was effective. If it was an ordinary remnant spirit, the God-slayer's soul-devouring ability would have been activated 100%. However, the remnant spirit hidden in the soul-absorbing statue was not ordinary. It was the remnant spirit of an innate god. What kind of existence was an innate god? It was very simple. Just think of Pangu, who created the world. Although the Khanate gods weren't as strong as Pangu, they were still far superior to Yi-chun. Even if it was just a remnant thought, it was still the same. It was also because of this that Yi-chun had set up a defense when he cut open the storage ring. Unfortunately, the Red Lotus Karmic Fire was only able to block the lingering thought as attack for a second. If Yi-chun did not have the God Slayer and was lucky enough to activate the God-slaying characteristic, Yi-chun might have really died at the hands of the soul-assimilating statue. At the thought of this, Yi-chun looked at the pitch-black soul-absorbing statue with a gloomy expression and slapped it with his left hand. Boom! A loud sound was heard, and the soul-absorbing idol was instantly smashed into powder by the violent power. Upon seeing this, Yi-chun waved his left hand, and a ball of Red Lotus Hellfire appeared in an instant. Then it flew straight toward the soul-absorbing statue that had turned into powder. Boom! 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 Dozens of explosions were heard. Then the Red Lotus Hellfire, which was originally a ball of Red Lotus Hellfire, exploded and turned into a gigantic demonic lotus that covered an area of 1,000 meters and was hundreds of meters tall. At this moment, the huge Castellan's mansion was burned to the ground by the Red Lotus Hellfire. The shocking change in the Castellan's mansion immediately attracted the attention of the players in the city. Then they all stared at the gigantic blood-red lotus that replaced the Castellan's mansion, dumbfounded. What? What is this? Did the Castellan get some kind of treasure and lose control? No. No. This is Yi-chun's spell. I've seen it in the game before. What? Yi-chun? It's him. It must be him. F***CK. If it's Yi-chun, won't we all be in trouble? Why should we follow? It must be the Liu clan who offended Yi-chun. It has nothing to do with us. So let's retreat now. We'll be fine. What are you waiting for? Let's run. The players who were attached to the Liu clan said one after another and ran out of the city without hesitation. Yi-chun, whose divine consciousness covered the entire roaring tiger city, glanced at the players who were fleeing in panic and then focused on the powder of the soul-absorbing statue that was constantly being burned. Yi-chun did not care whether the players ran or not. After all, it was the Liu clan who schemed against Yi-chun, not the players who were attached to them. Although Yi-chun was ruthless and merciless, he would not kill indiscriminately. Moreover, Yi-chun did not have the time to care about the players because a large number of black huts were rising from the powder that was being burned by the Red Lotus Hellfire and were gathering together. Yi-chun frowned again and again as he watched the black smoke that was gathering in the Red Lotus Hellfire and getting thicker and thicker. The black smoke was not a remnant soul, nor was it a remnant thought, nor was it a primordial spirit. It was not afraid of the Red Lotus Hellfire. What exactly was it? Just as Yi-chun thought about it, the black smoke rising from the powder of the soul-absorbing statue suddenly condensed and turned into a black crystal that fell to the ground. Seeing this, Yi-chun could not help but be stunned. What's going on? Not only did it not attack me, it even turned into a black crystal. At this moment, the system's notification suddenly sounded. Ding! Congratulations to player for killing the Khanate god's remnant thought. Player Yi-chun is rewarded with 10 million innate merit points. As soon as the system's notification ended, a golden light suddenly shone behind Yi Chen's head, and then a golden halo appeared directly behind Yi Chen's head. At this moment, an extremely mysterious power appeared out of thin air and rushed straight into Yi Chen's primordial spirit in his purple mansion. At the same time, Yi Chen's comprehension, primordial spirit, and physical body improved. Yi Chen's eyes lit up when he noticed this. Damn, 10 million innate merit points. I didn't expect that killing the Khanate God's remnant thought would give me such a benefit. Innate merit points could suppress one's luck, increase one's comprehension, speed of cultivation, and increase one's fortune. If one had enough innate merit points, no matter how evil one was, they would not even be able to get close to one. It could be said that the more innate merit points one had, the more benefits one would get. Otherwise, Yi Chen would not be so excited. At this thought, Yi Chen's lips curled up. He then looked at the black crystal on the ground again. What was this thing again? After staring at the black crystal for a while and confirming that it was not dangerous, Yi Chen raised his left hand and made a grabbing motion. With a whoosh, the black crystal flew toward Yi Chen and was caught by Yi Chen. At this moment, the system's notification sounded again. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen for obtaining Dark Master God's Divinity, blank, X1. As soon as the system's notification ended, Yi Chen was stunned. Holy shit, it was a divinity and a blank Master God's Divinity at that. Chapter 876. In the Western cultivation system, a godhead was the foundation of a deity. It was formed by the condensation of faith. Without a godhead, no matter how hard one worked, one would never become a deity. With a godhead, one could reach the heavens in one step and become an omnipotent deity respected by millions. Among all the godheads, the chief god's godhead was the most powerful. For example, the chief god of heaven had the chief god of light's godhead. Below the chief god's godhead, there were 3 types of godheads: high grade, mid grade, and low grade. It could be said that the godhead was the key to the Western cultivation system, and it was irreplaceable. Of course, this was not important. What was important was that there was only one chief god's godhead, no matter which element it was. And now, what did Yi Chen get? The chief god of darkness godhead, and it was a blank chief god of darkness godhead. What did this mean? Very simple. In a Western cultivation system, no one had succeeded the chief god of darkness godhead yet. What did an uninherited chief god of darkness godhead mean? Very simple. As long as one obtained the chief god of darkness godhead, one could directly become a chief god of darkness. At first glance, this had nothing to do with Yi Chen. After all, after Yi Chen ascended, he went to the chaos world, not the world where the Western deities were. But the truth was that this was not the case at all, because this would give Yi Chen the opportunity to fiercely insert himself into the Western cultivation system. To be more specific, Yi Chen could totally create a chief god of darkness of the Western cultivation system, one that could directly confront the chief god of light. In this way, Yi Chen could totally wreak havoc and plunder in the world where the Western cultivation system was located. As for why he did this, it was very simple. Snatch resources, snatch luck. The reason was that simple and violent. Damn it, Lucifer was the son of the chief god of light, god of heaven. Although he was very strong in his heyday, no matter how strong he could not be compared to God. But it was different now. As long as the chief god of darkness godhead was given to Lucifer, Lucifer would totally have the ability to directly confront the master of heaven, the chief god of light, god of heaven. At that time, the golden apple, the golden fleece, the goddess of fate, Nuns, the goddess of war and wisdom, Athena, and other goddesses could all be snatched away. As for heavenly treasures, rare treasures, spiritual herbs, and divine herbs, he couldn't let them go. The providence of heaven and earth was the same. Thinking of this, Yi Chen's eyes suddenly lit up. He looked directly at the ground and shouted, "You're right. Mengpa." As soon as Yi Chen finished speaking, the huge blood-red lotus instantly disappeared. Then a black vortex suddenly appeared on the ground. In the next second, Mengpa slowly rose from the black vortex. When Mengpa completely emerged from the black whirlpool immediately disappeared. Mengpa directly bowed to Yi Chun and said, "Greetings, young master." Hearing this, Yi Chun chortled and nodded, then tossed the Sovereign of Darkness Divine Spark to Granny Meng. After Mengpa caught it, she was stunned for a moment. Then, she looked at Yi Chun and asked, "Young master, this doesn't seem to be something from the Eldritch world." After hearing Mengpa's words, Yi Chun chuckled and nodded, then said, "This is the Sovereign of the West. This is the quintessence of the Western Divine Spirits world. When you return, give this to Lucifer and tell him to focus on improving his cultivation. After conquering a territory in the Nether Realm, return to the Western Divine Spirits world. As for what to do, I will tell him when the time comes." Yi Chun planned to let Lucifer wreak havoc and plunder in the Western Gods world, and at the same time, snatch the goddesses. It was fine to tell Mengpa the first part, but Yi Chun couldn't say the second part in front of Mengpa. Otherwise, Yi Chun wouldn't have said this to Mengpa. After hearing Yi Chun's words, Mengpa was slightly taken aback. Then, she looked at Yi Chun and asked, "Young master, as far as I know, the Western Gods realm is comparable to that of Daluo Jinxian. If you directly give this Sovereign of Darkness Divine Spark to Lucifer, will he be out of your control?" "It won't." When Yi Chun heard this, he smiled and said. Then, with a wave of his right hand, the ancient contract book instantly appeared in Yi Chun's right hand. When Mengpa saw this, she was stunned. "This is..." Mengpa stopped, and then came to Yi Chun's side. After carefully studying the ancient contract book for a while, she looked at Yi Chun and said, "Young master, with this book, you don't have to worry about Lucifer being out of your control. However, this book can only control 3,000 Daluo Jinxian at most. If there are more than that, it will go out of control. Young master, please don't overlook this." "Okay, I understand." Yi Chun was slightly taken aback when he heard this, but then he nodded and agreed. The ancient contract book was a special treasure. It contained the power of law and could take effect on the Daluo Jinxian. Yi Chun saw this when he obtained the ancient contract book. Unfortunately, although Yi Chun saw this, he did not see that the ancient contract book had a maximum number of slaves restriction. Otherwise, Yi Chun would not have been stunned by Mengpa's words. Hearing this, Mengpa let out a smile, then bowed toward Yi Chun and said, "Young master, do you have any other instructions?" When Yi Chun heard this, he glanced at Mengpa and said with a serious expression, "Conquering the underworld is not a small matter. You must be careful. If you encounter any danger, retreat if you can. If you can't, just call for me. At that time, I can lend you a hand." Yi Chun's current cultivation level was very low and could not cause any trouble in the Nether Realm, but Yi Chun had a pile of connate cardinal treasures, connate spiritual treasures, and acquired spiritual treasures. If Mengpa really encountered danger, Yi Chun could lend her his connate cardinal treasures, connate spiritual treasures, and other powerful treasures. In this way, Mengpa's combat ability would skyrocket, and she would not have to be afraid of any danger. Mengpa's heart was warmed when she heard this. Then, she bowed to Yi Chun and said, "Thank you very much, young master." Mengpa will take her leave. Yi Chun nodded. Mengpa took a deep look at Yi Chun, and then turned into a cloud of black smoke and disappeared without a trace. Glancing at the place where Mengpa disappeared, Yi Chun directly soared into the sky and reached a height of 1,000 meters in an instant. In the next second, Yi Chun raised his right hand and pressed it down hard. Boom! The air instantly exploded, and then a rapidly expanding giant palm appeared out of nowhere and slapped the roaring tiger city below. The moment the giant palm hit the roaring tiger city of the Liu clan, the earth trembled. At the same time, an extremely dull explosion was heard. Boom! After the explosion, smoke and dust rose, and then the roaring tiger city, which used to have countless buildings, was directly smashed into dust. Seeing this, Yi Chun waved his right hand, and a gust of wind appeared and blew straight to the ground. In the blink of an eye, a huge and bottomless pit was blown out of the ground. Yichen glanced at the uneven and huge stone layer in the pit and couldn't help but curl his lips. Another large spiritual mine. Chapter 877. Thinking of this, Yichen could not help but smirk. He raised his right hand and flicked his finger at the ground dozens of times. The sound of something breaking through the air was heard. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Countless space blades appeared out of nowhere and slashed at the ground. In the blink of an eye, the sound of something tearing could be heard from the ground. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. When the sound stopped, Yichen's eyes narrowed. He formed a claw with his right hand and sucked at the ground. Boom! With a loud sound, an incomparably huge stone mountain slowly rose from the ground. After 10 minutes, the mountain hidden underground had completely left the ground. Looking at the mountain that had left the ground, Yichen nodded with satisfaction. The quality of this spiritual ore was not low. Although there were no supreme-grade spiritual stones, most of them were upper-grade spiritual stones. Thinking of this, Yichen could not help but raise his eyebrows. Then, he sucked again with his right hand. Boom! There was a loud noise, and the mountain that contained the spiritual ore suddenly accelerated and flew toward Yichen. When the mountain that contained the spiritual ore came to Yichen's side, Yichen kept it in his small world. Looking at the spiritual or mountain that had been kept in his small world, Yichen could not help but raise his eyebrows. He had gained a lot this time, but the most important thing was the 10 million innate merit points and the divine spark of the dark over God from the Western divine world. It was time to go back. Thinking of this, Yichen used his mind to distort the space in front of him. Looking at the distorted space, Yichen stepped into it and disappeared. In the main hall of the city lord's residence in Samsara City, the space was suddenly distorted. Then, Yichen, who had left for a while, stepped out and appeared here. Seeing Yichen return, the flaming tiger Yilin was slightly stunned and then asked, "Brother, is everything settled?" Hearing this, Yichen smiled and nodded. Then he said, "Yes, it's settled. Yes, it's all done. Cultivate well. Yes, big brother." When Yinhu and Yilin heard this, they smiled sweetly before opening their mouths to reply. When Yichen heard this, he waved at Flaming Tiger Yilin and walked straight into the World Gaming Chamber. When Yichen arrived at the diamond-ranked gaming cabin, he stepped inside and laid down. With a creak, the door of the diamond-level game capsule closed. At the same time, Yichen shut his eyes. In the novice region of the Three Kingdoms, Luoyang, Imperial Palace, Princess Zhaoyang de Qiao and Princess Changel Xiao Qiao were in a palace. A pillar of light suddenly appeared. Afterwards, Yichen, who had logged off for a while, instantly appeared. The moment Yichen appeared, Zhao Yu and Chan Wan, who were in charge of protecting De Qiao and Xiao Qiao, looked over and called out sweetly, "Brother Yichen, husband." When Yichen heard this, he chuckled and nodded. Then, he looked at De Qiao and Xiao Qiao, who were sitting on the side of the bed. At this moment, Zhao Yu arrived at Yichen's side and whispered into Yichen's ear, "Husband, we've explained everything. Both little sister De Qiao and little sister Xiao Qiao are willing." When Zhao Yu said this, Yichen's eyes lit up. The stone that had been hanging in his heart also fell to the ground. De Qiao and Xiao Qiao were settled. Thinking of this, Yichen couldn't help but smile. Then, he looked at Zhao Yu and Chan Wan and said, "I've wronged you too." Zhao Yu and Chan Wan were Yichen's women. Today, De Qiao and Xiao Qiao were getting married to Yichen. If this were to happen to any other woman, they wouldn't feel any better. Even if this wedding was just for Lu Hong to see and they would have a formal wedding in the future, it would still be the same. It was because of this that Yichen said this to Zhao Yu and Chan Wan. When they heard Yichen's apologetic words, Zhao Yu and Chan Wan both smiled. Then, they looked at Yichen and said, "Husband, this concubine isn't a jealous woman." When Yichen heard the two women's words, he was stunned. Then his heart warmed. In the next second, Yichen gently hugged the two girls in his arms. After kissing each of them, he said, "I'm sorry. Thank you." When Zhao Yu and Chan Wan heard this, they both smiled and said, "Husband, it's getting late. Husband, it's getting late." Send us back. Otherwise, we'll arouse suspicion. Okay. When Yichen heard this, he nodded and said. Then he waved his right hand, and the space beside him instantly distorted. When Zhao Yu and Chan Wan saw this, they both glanced at Yichun before walking into the distorted space. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared without a trace. Looking at the place where the two women disappeared, Yichun let out a long breath. Then he looked at Xiao and Xiao Qiao and said, "It's been hard on you." When Yichun said this, the Qiao and Xiao Qiao's bodies trembled. In the next second, the Qiao and Xiao Qiao said to Yichun in unison, "Husband, it's been hard on us. The ones who have been wronged are our sisters." When Yichun heard this, his heart couldn't help but feel warm. Women in ancient times were so good. If they were women in the real world, they would probably cry and throw a tantrum. Thinking of this, Yichun couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Then he looked outside and shouted, "Come in. Serve the two princesses and prepare to set off." "Yes, Lord Yu of Beach." When the maids outside the door heard Yichun's words, they hurriedly bowed and saluted loudly. Then they filed in. When Yichun saw this, he left the hall and looked at the young eunuch called Xiao 11Z waiting in the courtyard. Before Yichun could speak, Xiao 11Z bowed with a fawning expression. "Lord Yu of Beach, according to etiquette, you still need to pay respects to His Majesty." When Yichun heard this, he glanced at the young eunuch and said, "Okay, lead the way." When the young eunuch called Xiao 11Z heard this, he hastily bowed. "Lord Yu of Beach, please come this way." After saying this, the young eunuch ran forward to lead the way for Yichun. In truth, Yichun didn't need anyone to lead the way to Lu Hong. However, this was the imperial palace, and the current emperor was Lu Hong. No matter how awesome Yichun was, no matter how well he knew the way, he still had to follow etiquette. Of course, if Yichun were to raise a flag of rebellion, that would be a different matter. After walking for a short while, Yichun arrived at the entrance of the imperial palace. The young eunuch leading the way hastily stopped and bowed to Yichun. "Lord Yu of Beach, please wait a moment while this servant goes in to report." Yichun nodded. When the young eunuch saw this, he hastily bowed to Yichun again and then hastily ran into the hall. Not long after, the thumping of footsteps could be heard, and then great eunuch Zhongli ran out jubilantly. The moment he stepped out of the door, Zhongli solemnly bowed to Yichun. "This servant pays respect to Yu of Beach." Chapter 878. After Yichun heard Zhongli's words, he nodded with a smile and said, "That's right. Thank you for your trouble, Zhang Changshi. You flatter me, you flatter me. Lord Serene King, please. His Majesty is waiting for you in the palace." When Zhongli heard this, he immediately smiled. After that, he bowed to Yichun. Hearing this, Yichun let out a faint smile and followed Zhongli toward the main hall. When they arrived at the hall, Yichun glanced at Lu Hong, who was sitting on the dragon throne. He looked happy but was actually gloomy. Then he bowed to Lu Hong and said, "Your humble servant pays his respects to your Majesty. Long live the Emperor." Lu Hong was originally happy. Unfortunately, not only did the farce of Lu Bian plotting against Yichun happen, but Empress He and Lu Bian were struck by lightning. Under these circumstances, even if Lu Hong wanted to be happy, he couldn't. When Yichun finished speaking, Lu Hong, who was sitting on the dragon throne, glanced at Yichun, then chuckled and nodded. "My worthy son-in-law, from today onwards, I will entrust my two precious daughters to you. You can't let me down." When Yichun heard this, he nodded seriously and bowed to Lu Hong. "Your Majesty, please rest assured. Your humble servant will do his best to take care of the two princesses and not let them suffer any grievances." From today onwards, the Qiao and Xiao Qiao were Yichun's women. Even without Lu Hong's reminder, Yichun wouldn't let them be unhappy. After hearing Yichun's words, Lu Hong nodded in satisfaction. He then looked at Zhongli and said, then he looked at Zhongli and asked, "Is the princess dowry ready?" "Your Majesty, everything is ready. We're just waiting to depart." When Zhongli heard this, he immediately smiled flatteringly and bowed to Lu Hong. When Lu Hong heard this, he nodded with a smile. Then he looked at Yi Chun and said, Yi Chun, I'm not sure. I won't say any superfluous words. Son-in-law, you and your father are my right-hand men, the cornerstone of the great Han dynasty. I hope that you will not only take good care of the two princesses, but also protect the great Han dynasty for me. Are you willing? When Yi Chun heard this, his expression turned solemn, and he solemnly bowed to Lu Hong. Your Majesty, this humble subject is willing. When Lu Hong heard Yi Chun's solemn words, his gloomy face immediately brightened up. The next second, Lu Hong looked at Yi Chun and chuckled. Good, we believe you. Let's depart. Don't miss the auspicious hour. As far as Lu Hong was concerned, marrying off his daughter was just a ploy. What he wanted to hear the most was Yi Chun saying, this humble subject is willing. As for the reason, it was very simple. Yi Chun was the unparalleled war god of the Great Han Empire. With Yi Chun, the Great Han dynasty was as stable as a mountain. If Yi Chun rebelled, the Great Han dynasty would be destroyed in a matter of days. It was precisely because Lu Hong had noticed this that he had become suspicious of Yi Chun's combat strength after he had sensed it. Of course, Lu Hong's suspicions of Yi Chun have been dispelled by Yi Chun's various performances and Zhang Li's persuasion. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been the stories of Lu Hong adopting a daughter and Yi Chun marrying two princesses. Hearing Lu Hong's words, Yi Chun nodded his head heavily. Afterwards, he bowed to Lu Hong and said, this humble subject will take his leave. Hearing this, Lu Hong chuckled and nodded his head. Seeing this, Yi Chun bowed once more before leaving the Grand Hall. Outside, Yi Chun glanced at the starry sky before heading straight for the Imperial Palace gates. After Yi Chun left, Zhang Li did not remain idle. After bidding farewell to Lu Hong, he led a large number of Imperial guards to carry chests wrapped in red silk. Afterwards, he used a bridal sedan to carry Princess Zhaoyang, Princess De Qiao, and Princess Chengel, Princess Xiao Qiao, towards the Imperial Palace gates. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, Yi Chun's wedding procession and Lu Hong's imperial family's wedding procession were mixed together. Afterwards, they left the palace and headed for Yi Chun's residence, Yu of Beek's residence. Along the way, the commoners sent them off with gongs and drums shaking the heavens. It was truly a lively scene. Of course, it was difficult not to be lively. This was because the ones getting married today were Yu of Beek and Yi Chun, who had saved all of the commoners of the world. Just this point alone was enough for the commoners of the city to leave their homes and celebrate on the streets. If one added in the fact that Yi Chun was marrying the Great Han Empire's Princess De Qiao and Princess Chengel's Princess Xiao Qiao, as well as the 7 consecutive days of free food and drink, the commoners of Luoyang were even less likely to stay at home. Time slowly passed. 2 hours later, when the sky was just beginning to brighten, Yi Chun finally led his procession to Yu of Beek's residence. After kicking the sedan door, receiving the bride, and bowing to the heavens and earth, Yi Chun finally brought De Qiao and Xiao Qiao to the rear residence. Of course, Yi Chun could not remain in the rear residence and enter the bridal chamber. After all, Yi Chun was today's main character. He still had to entertain guests. Although it was very troublesome, Yi Chun could not casually skip out on any of the steps. In the main hall of the front residence of Yu of Beek's residence, Yi Chun, who was seated at the head of the table, glanced at Zhang Li, who had been busying himself after arriving at Yu of Beek's residence, not treating himself as a guest at all. Yi Chun then curled his lips in disdain. This damned eunuch, if one did not look at his past and current goals, he would be a pretty good servant. Unfortunately, his intentions were not pure. In Yi Chun's residence of Yu of Beek's residence, Zhang Li's attitude was very humble, appearing very much like a servant. At first glance, there was nothing strange about it. After all, Zhang Li was a eunuch. But in reality, this was not the case. This was because Zhang Li had done all of this on purpose. His goal was to tell all of the guests attending Yi Chun's wedding one thing. Yi Chun, the great general of swift cavalry of the Great Han Empire, was the only prince with a different surname. He was a staunch ally of the eunuchs. Otherwise, why would Zhongli, Zhang Chongshi work so hard? And why would Yi Chun, the great Han Empire's you of Beach, not mind being very busy? Of course, this also involved Zhang Li wanting to curry favor with Yi Chun. He wanted to continue to get closer to Yi Chun. However, no matter how much it involved, he did not tell all of the civil and military officials that Yi Chun is a staunch ally of the eunuchs. This was very important. Thinking of this, Yi Chun smiled coldly and then calmed down. At this moment, the servant outside Yu of Beek's residence suddenly straightened his neck and shouted, "Cavalry Commandant Chao Ningfu, Chao Mingde, congratulates Lord Yu of Beek on your wedding. Present, 12 top-quality Eastern pearls, a pair of jade rui, a child-giving guanine, 12 boxes of top-quality silk, and 8 famous horses." When Yi Chun heard this, he could not help but raise his eyebrows. Chaomon was indeed Chaomon. His actions of getting closer to Yi Chun were faster than others. Just as Yi Chun thought of this, Zhang Li, who was standing in the front yard, suddenly curled his lips in disdain. He then looked at the eunuch beside him and said, "Go and receive his majesty." Chapter 879. Yes, Lord Personal Attendant. The eunuch hastily bowed and went out to greet Chao Ningfu. Yi Chun couldn't help but raise an eyebrow at this. Chao Ningfu, who had always said that he would rather betray the world than have the world betray him, would endure or explode in the face of such unfair treatment. He would endure. Otherwise, he wouldn't be worthy of being called a formidable character. Just as Yi Chun thought of this, Guo Yi, who was acting as the housekeeper, suddenly looked at Yi Chun and bowed. "Master, should we have General Yunzhong and General Yunzhong send some soldiers to the gate and the courtyard?" Yi Chun nodded and said, "Go. Tell them that if someone is unhappy and wants to cause trouble, they can stop them. If they don't accept it, they can beat them out." Zhang Li was a servant in Yi Chun's residence, busying himself here and there with impure motives. Yi Chun knew this, but Yi Chun didn't care. This was because no matter how busy Zhang Li was, no matter how much trouble he caused, the civil and military officials of the court would only see him as Lu Hong's representative and would never associate him with Yi Chun. However, while Yi Chun didn't care, the court would. This was because Zhang Li had a hostile relationship with most of the great Han officials. To be more precise, Zhang Li was the one who welcomed all the civil and military officials of the imperial court. Basically, all of them would have a belly full of anger from Zhang Li. The minor officials didn't have much of a problem. They didn't have the ability and didn't dare to oppose Zhang Li, so they could only swallow their anger. But the higher officials were different. For example, Wang Yun, Lu Ji, Yuan Kuang, and so on. Among them, the civil officials might only be able to talk back, but the generals might take action. Of course, the premise was that Zhang Li would deliberately humiliate the court. Although the chances of this happening weren't very high, Yi Chun still had to prepare in advance. After all, today was Yi Chun's wedding banquet. Yi Chun didn't want to see anyone cause trouble at his place. After hearing Yi Chun's words, Guo Yi nodded and then bowed to Yi Chun. "Yes, my lord." After Guo Yi finished speaking, he left the hall. At this moment, Chao Ningfu was led to the entrance of the hall by a young eunuch. "Wait here, I'll go and inform them." The young eunuch glanced at Chao Ningfu and said. Before Chao Ningfu could respond, the young eunuch went to the hall with a flattering face and bowed respectfully to Yi Chun. "Sir Yu of Beech, Captain Chao Ningfu of the cavalry wishes to meet you. Let him in." Hearing this, Yi Chun nodded his head and said. When the little eunuch heard this, he hastily bowed and said, "Yes, you Lord Beech." After the young eunuch finished speaking, he left the hall. Not long after, Chao Ningfu entered the hall. After glancing at Yi Chun, he directly bowed to Yi Chun and said, "Chao Ningfu and Chao Mingde, pay respects to you of Beech. Mingde, we haven't seen each other for a while. How have you been?" Yi Chun asked with a smile after hearing Chao Ningfu's words. When Chao Ningfu heard this, he quickly bowed and said, "Thank you for your concern, you of Beech. F***, My body is strong, and I'm fine." When Yi Chen heard this, he glanced at Chao Ningfu and said, "It's my honor to have Mengda here at King R's wedding banquet. Mengda, you must drink a few more cups at the banquet later." When Chao Ningfu heard this, he nodded with a smile, then bowed and said, "Thank you. Yes, you of Beach." When Yi Chen heard this, he smiled and picked up a teacup on the table and took a sip. When Chao Ningfu saw this, he hastily bowed to Yi Chen and said, "I'll take my leave. I'll take my leave for now." When Yi Chen heard this, he nodded. When Chao Ningfu saw this, he immediately turned and left the hall. When Yi Chen saw Chao Ningfu leave, he curled his lips in disdain. Chao Ningfu is quite scheming. As soon as he arrived at the front yard, he sized up my generals and soldiers. When he came to the hall, he even secretly observed my attitude. He's treating me as a formidable opponent. He wants to use the wedding banquet as an excuse to openly test my strength. What a good idea. Unfortunately, in the face of absolute power, these little tricks are useless. When he thought of this, Yi Chen smiled coldly. At this moment, outside Yu of Beek's residence, the servant in charge of welcoming Yu of Beek's residence shouted again. Middle Military Academy officers Yuan Xiao and Yuan Binchu congratulate you of Beek's residence on your wedding. Present. A pair of jade cheilants, 10 jade guanine statues, 10 boxes of rare treasures, 100 boxes of top-quality silk, 10,000 premium war horses, and 10 famous horses. Bing Province Provincial Governor Ding Yuan and Ding Jianyang congratulate you of Beek's residence on your wedding. Present. 100 cat's eye stones, 10 pairs of jade ruby scepters, a box of purple gold coins, 66 boxes of top-quality silk, and 100,000 premium war horses. Administrator Wang Yun and Wang Zisher congratulate you of Beek's residence on your wedding. Present. 100 ancient books, a pair of jade ruby scepters, a set of jadeite exquisite chess, 10 famous paintings, and a set of the 4 treasures of the study. Northern Commander Lu Ji and Lu Zigan congratulate you of Beek's residence on your wedding. Present. A pair of jade ruby scepters and 2 boxes of top-quality silk. The servant's shouts rang out again and again. All the officials and generals of the imperial court arrived one after another. This time, Zhongli didn't have a young eunuch welcome them. Instead, he did it himself. This was because the officials who came either held high positions or came from illustrious families. Most of them were worthy of Zhang Li's personal reception. Of course, there were some people who Zhang Li disliked, such as Lu Ji, that Zhang Li didn't welcome. Time slowly passed, and the King Yu's residence quickly became lively. The officials who came to participate in Yi Chen's wedding banquet exchanged greetings with each other. After that, they chatted about this and that. It was very lively. It didn't take long for all the officials to arrive and follow Zhang Li to the main hall to pay respects to Yi Chen. Yi Chen was the ghost king of the Great Han Dynasty. He was second only to one person and above tens of thousands of people. His status was noble, and his military achievements were valiant. Whether it was prestige, reputation, or status, they all far surpassed all the civil and military officials. It was precisely for this reason that none of the officials objected to paying respects to Yi Chen, this rising star. Even the great clans with several hundred years of history were no exception. For example, the Yuan clan of the 3 dukes of the 4th generation. Yu of Beek's residence, main hall. All the officials and generals of the imperial court arrived at the main hall and bowed to Yi Chen. "We pay respects to Lord Yu of Beek." Yi Chen chuckled and nodded. Then he stood up and said, "Guests are guests. Today, we won't leave until we're drunk." "Yes, Lord Yu of Beek." The officials all bowed to Yi Chen. When Yi Chen heard this, he looked at Zhang Li, who, after leading the civil and military officials in, stood next to him like a servant. Without waiting for Yi Chen to speak, Zhang Li understood Yi Chen's meaning. He stepped forward and shouted in a sharp voice, "Let the banquet begin." Chapter 880. With Zhang Li's words, the officials and generals of the court sat down according to their respective positions. At the same time, the servants of Yu of Beech's residence began to move. Before long, the servants brought food and wine to the table in the main hall. Glancing at the 2 rows of officials, Yi-chan raised his cup and said, "Today you are all honored to be here today. It's my honor to have all of you here today. Come, let's have a toast." "Yes, Lord Yu of Beech." The officials all raised their cups and bowed to Yi-chan. Hearing this, Yi-chan let out a faint smile and emptied the cup of wine in one gulp. When the civil and military officials saw this, they quickly followed suit and downed the wine in their cups. At this moment, Zhongli bowed to Yi-chan and said, "Brother Yi, please forgive me. Lord Yu of Beech, this servant has brought some dancers from the palace. Should I invite them in to liven things up?" Yi-chan glanced at Zhongli and said, "Yu of Beech's residence. Zhang Changshu is too kind." During the 3 Kingdoms period, there were always dancers at banquets to liven things up. Yi-chan naturally knew of this, but Yi-chan didn't have any dancers. Of course, even if Yi-chan did have dancers, he wouldn't have let them dance. But now that Zhongli had told Yi-chan that he had brought some dancers from the palace, Yi-chan naturally wouldn't refuse. As soon as Yi-chan finished speaking, Zhongli immediately smiled, then bowed and said, "This is this servant's duty." After Zhongli finished speaking, he clapped his hands towards the door. Clap, clap. A eunuch hastily bowed and excused himself. Before long, a group of dancers and musicians entered the hall. As soon as the dancers and musicians entered the door, they hurriedly bowed to Yi-chan and said, "Greetings, Lord Yu of Beech." Yi-chan nodded and said, "Let's begin. Let's begin." "Yes, Lord Yu of Beech." When the dancers and musicians heard this, they all bowed to Yi-chan. Then, the dancers stayed in the center of the hall, while the musicians went to the corners of the hall. A few breaths later, music began to play, and the dancers began to move. All the officials and generals cheered, "Good." With the dancers to liven things up, the awkward atmosphere in the hall was greatly alleviated, and the atmosphere became lively. Time passed slowly. Halfway through the banquet, when Yi-chan thought that nothing would happen, Chao Ningfu suddenly stood up, bowed to Yi-chan, and said loudly, "Brother Yi, I'm sorry. Lord Yu of Beech, I have something to say, but I'm not sure if I should say it." Yi glanced at Chao Ningfu's words, to speak to Beech Chao, and Beech to Beech speech Beech. When Chao Ningfu heard Yi-chan's words, he bowed to Yi-chan and said, "Thank you. Beech, I've heard that you of Beech have many generals under your command, and all of them are overlords. Would it be possible for you to give them a performance in the hall?" Yi-chan narrowed his eyes at Chao Ningfu's words, and a cold glint flashed across his eyes. This bastard Chao Ningfu used Xiangyu to describe my subordinates. Was he implying that my subordinates were all overlords and plotting a rebellion? Overlord was Xiangyu's title. During the pre-Qin period, he was the best in the world. Using overlord to describe someone might seem like a compliment, but when one thought about Xiangyu's status, one would know that it wasn't a compliment at all, but a mockery. That was because Xiangyu was a traitor. Otherwise, why would Yi-chan's murderous intent instantly surge? No, insinuating that I'm plotting a rebellion was only one of Chao Ningfu's goals. Another goal should be to test the strength of my generals during the Golden Turban Rebellion. Chao Ningfu had met Yi-chan before. At that time, the strength of the reincarnation of Mortal City's army could not be concealed, and the weakest among them was an emperor-level general. Although Chao Ningfu had seen Yi-chan's generals, he couldn't judge the strength of Yi-chan's generals. This was obviously not the outcome that Chao Ningfu, who had ulterior motives, wanted to see. The reason was very simple. The generals were the key to conquering a city or fighting on the battlefield. Because of this, Chao Ningfu wanted to test the strength of Yi-chan's generals. Just as Yi-chan was thinking about this, Yuan Shao's eyes lit up when he heard Chao Ningfu's words. He stood up and bowed to Yi-chan. "Your Excellency, Ghost King, in my humble opinion, if you only have dancers to liven things up, you'll have more femininity and less masculinity. You have to know that solitary yin does not grow and solitary yang does not grow. If you only have dancers, It's inevitable that something will be missing. How dare you? Today is Lord King Yu's joyous occasion. Yet, you actually want to recklessly use your weapons. What are your intentions? The moment Yuan Shao's words left his mouth, Zhang Li, who was beside Yi Chun, suddenly opened his eyes and shouted sternly. The entire hall fell silent as soon as Zhang Li finished speaking. A few seconds later, Chao Ningfu suddenly laughed and said, Zhang Li, you are wrong. Secretary Zhang, you're wrong. Fuck, I didn't say we were going to use weapons. After Chao Ningfu said that, he looked at Yi Chun and bowed to him. Lord, you have beached, F***CK. I apologize for my rudeness. I hope that Lord you have beached will not take it to heart. When Yi Chun heard this, he glanced at Chao Ningfu, smiled, and said, You're right. Solitary yin does not grow, and solitary yang does not grow. Binshu is right, but what's the point of a mere drill? In this king's opinion, Mengda and Binshu should send out their generals to spar with this king's generals. Wouldn't that be better? Chao Ningfu's sudden suggestion, Yuan Shao's agreement, and the silence of the other officials were all here to investigate the situation. Of course, there were some who didn't want to offend the Yuan clan behind Yuan Shao, and some who wanted to watch the show without offending either side. No matter what the civil and military officials were thinking, no matter what Chao Ningfu and Yuan Shao were scheming, Yi Chun did not care. Because no matter what they did, no matter how they probed, no matter how they schemed, once the war broke out, they wouldn't be able to last a day against Yi Chun. Even if everyone worked together, it would still be the same. It was because Yi Chun was completely confident that Yi Chun didn't care what Chao Ningfu and Yuan Shao were up to. Of course, even if he didn't care, he still had to punish them. Otherwise, the reputation of Yi Chun, the Great Han Empire's King Yu, as a coward, would spread throughout the Great Han Empire in less than a day. This was not the result Yi Chun wanted to see. It was precisely because of this that Yi Chun had made such a suggestion. His goal was to cripple Chao Ningfu and Yuan Shao's subordinates. Yi Chun wasn't someone who was easy to talk to. If it wasn't for the fact that Yuan Shao and Chao Ningfu were the key to the vassal power struggle, and that Yi Chun couldn't kill them for the time being, Yi Chun would have already slapped them to death. Chao Ningfu and Yuan Shao's expressions changed when they heard Yi Chun's words. They hadn't expected Yi Chun to say such a thing. Just as Chao Ningfu and Yuan Shao's expressions changed, the expressionless Ding Yuan suddenly stood up and bowed to Yi Chun, saying, Brother Yi, please forgive me. Lord you of Beach, this Ding has an adopted son named Abu. He is willing to fight for you of Beach. Chapter 881. Yi Chun was stunned when he heard Ding Yuan's words. What was Ding Yuan trying to do? Was he trying to make a name for Abu? Was he trying to curry favor with him? Or was he trying to be a peacemaker? Thinking of this, Yi Chun glanced at Ding Yuan and said, Granted, Yi Chun could not tell what Ding Yuan's motive was, but agreeing to Ding Yuan's request would not affect Yi Chun's decision to cripple Chao Ningfu and Yuan Shao's generals. The reason was simple. As long as Abu went up and sparred with Chao Ningfu and Yuan Shao's subordinates, Chao Ningfu and Yuan Shao's generals would be crippled regardless of whether Abu went easy on them or not. This was because Yi Chun had 10,000 ways to cripple Chao Ningfu and Yuan Shao's subordinates without anyone noticing. As for Chao Ningfu and Yuan Shao's generals, they were all famous historical generals. It would be a pity if they were crippled. Today was Yi Chun's wedding day. If Chao Ningfu and Yuan Shao's generals wanted to cause trouble, no matter how good Yi Chun's temper was, there was no way he would let these people off. Chao Ningfu and Yuan Shao heaved a sigh of relief when they heard Yi Chun's words. It was true that they wanted to test the strength of Yi Chun's generals, but they did not dare to let their generals spar with Yi Chun's generals. After all, sparring usually did not end in a draw. Most of the time, they would be injured, seriously injured, or even killed. No matter what the outcome was, it was not what they wanted to see. This was because if something happened to Yi Chun's generals, they would offend Yi Chun to the extreme. And if their generals were injured or killed, they would suffer heavy losses. It was because of this that they were unwilling to let their subordinates spar with Yi Chun's subordinates. Just as Chao Ningfu and Yuan Shao heaved a sigh of relief, Ding Yuan bowed to Yi Chun and said loudly, "Yes, you Lord Beach." After Ding Yuan finished speaking, he immediately left the hall. Not long after, he walked in with a tall and sturdy-looking general. As soon as he entered, Ding Yuan bowed to Yi Chun and said, "You Lord Beach, this man is my adopted son. His surname is Liu and his name is Bu. His courtesy name is Fengxian." As soon as Ding Yuan finished speaking, Abu turned to Yi Chun and cupped his fists. Then he bowed and said loudly, "Yuan Prefecture, Abu Liu Fengxian pays his respects to the great general of agile cavalry." Abe's voice was loud and clear. His imposing manner instantly attracted the attention of Chao Ningfu, Yuan Shao, and the others. Yi Chun glanced at Chao Ningfu and Yuan Shao, then looked at Abe. He nodded with a smile and said, "That's right. Jianyang, Ding Yuan, also known as Jianyang, has been guarding Bing province all year round, fighting against foreign tribes." This prince had long guessed that Jianyang must have fierce soldiers under his command. Only after seeing Fengxian today did I realize how short-sighted I was back then. When Yi Chun said this, Abe's eyes suddenly lit up. His body trembled, and a fierce and violent aura was instantly released. Seeing this, Yi Chun laughed and then shouted, "What an impressive Abe! If you weren't Jianyang's adopted son, this prince would definitely have taken you under my wing." Hearing this, Abu's eyes lit up. It was clear that Abe not only liked Yi Chun's words, but he also wanted to follow Yi Chun. Otherwise, Abe would not have acted like this. But would Yi Chun really take Abe under his wing? Of course not. Just the fact that Chan Wan had become Yi Chun's woman meant that Yi Chun would not take Abe under his wing. And if you added on the fact that Abe was capricious, Yi Chun would not take Abe under his wing. As for Yi Chun's praise of Abe, it was nothing more than pleasantries, or perhaps it was done on purpose. As for his goal, it was to incite Abe's fighting spirit. Yi Chun could not help but raise his eyebrows when he saw Abu's excited expression. Then he shouted, "Fengxian, are you willing to fight for this prince and spar with Chao Mingde and Yuan Benchu's subordinates?" "This general is willing." Abe trembled, then got down on one knee and loudly bowed. Hearing this, Yi Chun nodded in satisfaction. He then looked at Chao Ningfu and Yuan Shao. "Quickly send someone to fight." "Yes, you Lord Beach." When Chao Ningfu and Yuan Shao heard Yi Chun's words, they glanced at each other, then bowed to Yi Chun. At this moment, Chao Ningfu and Yuan Shao felt sullen, and it was a sullen feeling that could not be dispelled. But no matter how sullen they felt, they could not refuse Yi Chun. After all, they were the ones who had suggested this sparring to liven things up idea. If they refused, they would be slapping themselves in the face, and it would be a resounding slap at that. After the two of them finished speaking, they fiercely glared at Ding Yuan. After that, they each left. Not long after, they led the two generals to the main hall. The moment they entered, Chao Ningfu and Yuan Shao bowed to Yi Chun. "You Lord Beach, this is Chao Shao. S. General Xiahou Chun, Chunyu Qiong." The moment the two finished speaking, Xiahou Chun and Chunyu Qiong immediately bowed to Yi Chun and said loudly, "Chunyu Qiong pays respects to you, Lord Beach." "Xiahou Chun pays respects to you, Lord Beach." When Yi Chun heard this, he glanced at the two of them and said, "Are you willing to spar with weapons?" Chunyu Qiong and Xiahou Chun were taken aback by Yi Chun's words, but Chao Ningfu and Yuan Shao both paled and hastily bowed to Yi Chun. You Lord Beach, you must not." Weapons had no eyes, and a single move could easily draw blood. If this happened, who knew if Yi Chun would seize the opportunity to make things difficult for them? Chao Ningfu and Yuan Shao were no fools. They could see the anger hidden beneath Yi Chun's calm expression. They did not want Yi Chun to seize the opportunity to flip out. Oh, why not? Yi Chun glanced at Chao Ningfu and Yuan Shao, then asked. Chao Ningfu and Yuan Shao bowed to Yi Chun and said without hesitation, "I'm sorry. Today is you Lord Beach's big day. How can you use weapons so recklessly?" All right, let's bar then. Hearing this, Yichen nodded his head as if he had suddenly realized something, and then said, "Did Yichen know that today was not a good day to use weapons?" Of course he knew, but so what if he knew? As long as he could scare Chao Ningfu and Yuan Shao, Yichen was more than happy to do so. Chao Ningfu and Yuan Shao heaved a sigh of relief when they heard Yichen's words. At this moment, Abu turned to Xiahou Chun and Chunyu Qiong and said calmly, "The two of you can come at me together." Xiahou Chun and Chunyu Qiong were stunned when they heard this. Then their faces darkened. Abu's words were too arrogant. How could Xiahou Chun and Chunyu Qiong like it? Since Feng Xian is so confident, the two of you can come at me together. Chao Ningfu glanced at Abu, then at Xiahou Chun and Chunyu Qiong. When Yuan Shao heard this, he glared at Chao Ningfu unhappily and shouted, "What are you talking about? Feng Xian is a general that you Lord Beach can't stop praising. The two of you don't have to worry. Come at me together." Xiahou Chun was Chao Ningfu's general, but Chunyu Qiong was not. Otherwise, Yuan Shao would not be so upset. Xiahou Chun and Chunyu Qiong looked at each other, then at Abu, cupped their fists and shouted, "Brother Liu, please." Chapter 882. Hearing this, Abu glanced at Chunyu Qiong and Xiahou Chun, then raised his right hand and curled his finger at them. Xiahou Chun and Chunyu Qiong were enraged by Abu's provocation. In the next second, they clenched their fists and roared, "Take this!" After shouting, they charged at Abu in a frenzy. Abu only made his move when the two arrived in front of him. He then faced Xiahou Chun and Chunyu Qiong head-on. Bang! 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 The sound of collision rang out. After a few breaths, Chao Ningfu, who had returned to his seat and was watching the battle with a wine cup in hand, narrowed his eyes. It was obvious when an expert made a move. Only now did Chao Ningfu realize that Abu's martial strength was terrifyingly high. This point could be easily seen from the way Abu fought Xiahou Chun and Chunyu Qiong alone, and even forced the two of them to retreat repeatedly. In fact, Chao Ningfu was not the only one who noticed Abu. Yuan Shao and all the civil and military officials in the hall began to pay attention to Abu. It couldn't be helped. Abu's ease performance was difficult to not attract attention. Bang! 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 The sound of fists and feet colliding became more frequent and louder. It was obvious that the three were beginning to let go and increase their strength. When Yichen saw this, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. "Feng Xian, don't disappoint this king." As soon as Yichen finished speaking, Abu's eyes widened and he roared, "Kill!" Killing intent rose as he spoke. At the same time, Abu's ferocious attacks doubled in strength. Bang! Bang! Xiahou Chun and Chunyu Qiong were sent flying by a punch from each of the Abu's fists. When Yi Chun saw this, with a thought, two invisible wind needles instantly appeared and pierced into Xiahou Chun's and Chunyu Qiong's right arms. At this moment, Xiahou Chun and Chunyu Qiong both let out a muffled groan. Bang! Bang! Xiahou Chun and Chunyu Qiong landed on the ground and grabbed their right arms at the same time. If a doctor were to examine Xiahou Chun and Chunyu Qiong, he would discover that the meridians in their right arms were completely shattered. To be more precise, the right arms of the first-rate historical General Xiahou Chun and the first-rate historical General Chunyu Qiong were crippled. Just as Xiahou Chun and Chunyu Qiong grabbed their right arms with their left hands, a layer of cold sweat involuntarily appeared on their foreheads. Then, with a schwa sound, their complexions turned incomparably pale. Ding Yuan, who had been spectating the duel, was startled upon seeing this. Clearly, injuring Chunyu Qiong and Xiahou Chun was not Ding Yuan's original intention. Otherwise, he would not have acted like this. Yichen could not help but raise his eyebrows when he noticed the change in Ding Yuan's expression. It turned out that Ding Yuan's original intention was to be a peacemaker. Unfortunately, Abu, who was bent on showing off, was not under his control. Even if I didn't make a move just now, Xiahou Chun and Chunyu Qiong would still be injured, just that their right arms wouldn't be crippled. Just as Yichen thought of this, Chen Yuqiong's eyes immediately revealed an extremely furious gaze. Then she turned to Abu and sternly shouted, "You, not satisfied? You can come again." Abu sneered and shouted when he heard this. The moment Abu's words fell, Yuan Shao immediately frowned and shouted at Chen Yuqiong, "You good for nothing, back off." "Yes, my lord." Chen Yuqiong's expression changed when she heard this. Then, she gritted her teeth and bowed. Then, she left the hall. "Xiao Chong?" Chao Ningfu glanced at the departing Chen Yuqiong, then turned to Xiahou Chun and asked. When Xiahou Chun heard this, he tried hard to suppress the anger that was about to erupt. Then, he stood up while holding his right arm and bowed to Chao Ningfu. "My lord, Chun is incompetent. I have embarrassed you." Chao Ningfu heaved a sigh of relief when he heard Xiahou Chun's calm words. Then he said, "It's fine. Victory and defeat are common in war. Quickly back down and recuperate." When Xiahou Chun heard this, he nodded and bowed to Chao Ningfu. "Yes, my lord." After Xiahou Chun finished speaking, he glanced at Abu and then bowed to Yi Chun. "This general will take his leave." When Yi Chun heard this, he chuckled and nodded. When Xiahou Chun saw this, he immediately left the hall. After glancing at the departing Xiahou Chun, Yi Chun turned to Abu and said, Feng Xian did not disappoint me." As expected, Feng Xian did not disappoint me. "Here's a reward." When Yi Chun finished speaking, he waved his right hand and 10 chests of purple gold appeared beside Abu. Abu, who was about to respond to Yi Chun, was stunned when he saw this. Then, he hurriedly bowed to Yi Chun. "Thank you, Lord you of Beach, for your reward." 10 chests of purple gold was not a small sum. Not only was Abu stunned, but all the officials in the hall were also stunned. They had expected Yi Chun to reward Abu, but they had not expected Yi Chun's reward to be this great. Yi Chun glanced at the shocked officials and smiled faintly. Then he turned to Chao Ningfu and Yuan Shao and asked, "What do you think? Mengda, did Ben Chu enjoy himself? Do you want to send some more generals?" "Lord you of Beach, Feng Xian is so valiant that none of our generals can compare to him, so we won't embarrass ourselves." Chao Ningfu and Yuan Shao's faces froze, and they hurriedly bowed. Chao Ningfu and Yuan Shao hadn't known at the start whether Abu was strong or not, but it would be strange if they didn't know now. It was precisely because Chao Ningfu and Yuan Shao were aware of Abu's strength that they refused Yi Chen's suggestion. What a joke. In just 10 minutes, Xiahou Chun and Chen Yuqiong had been defeated by Abu. If they sent more people, they would only be asking for humiliation. Yi Chen glanced at Chao Ningfu and Yuan Shao, then said, "Since that's the case, the sparring is over." As soon as Yi Chen finished speaking, Abu bowed to Yi Chun. "This general will take his leave." When Yi Chen heard Abu's words, he smiled slightly and looked at Zhang Li, who was beside him. "At another seat." "Yes, Lord you of Beach." Zhang Li was taken aback, and then he hastily bowed to Yi Chun. After saying this, he shot a glance at the young eunuch standing by the door, who was waiting to be demolished. Seeing this, the little eunuch hurriedly bowed and left the door. When Abu, who was standing in the hall, saw this, his eyes lit up. He quickly bowed to Yi Chun and said, "Many thanks to you of Beach. Feng Xian, you must drink a few more cups today. Otherwise, this prince will not agree." Yi Chun laughed and said. When Abu heard this, he nodded heavily. Then, he bowed to Yi Chun and said loudly, "Yes, Lord you of Beach." At this moment, Abu's heart was filled with excitement and excitement. This was because he had received Yi Chen's invitation to eat with all the civil and military officials of the imperial court. This was recognition, and even more so, a reward. Yi Chen had not done this to subdue Abu, but to make things difficult for Chao Ningfu and Yuan Shao. After all, Abu had just injured their right-hand man. No matter how magnanimous Chao Ningfu and Yuan Shao were, they could not overlook this. When Yi Chen heard Abu's words, he chuckled and nodded. He then looked at the dancer who had retreated to the corner and said, "Continue." Chapter 883. As soon as Yichen finished speaking, the dancers came to the main hall. When the music started again, the dancers started dancing again. The banquet continued, and the atmosphere quickly became lively. Unfortunately, no matter how lively the atmosphere was, it could not hide the hypocrisy. It could not be helped. The people who came to attend the banquet were all civil and military officials of the Great Han Dynasty. They each had their own power and thoughts. They were either enemies, allies, or neutral. No matter what their relationship was, there was one thing that they all agreed on. That was, everyone had to look happy and happy. Because they were attending the wedding of the Great Han Empire's #1 prince, Yichen. Yichen glanced at the civil and military officials in the hall, toasting and laughing merrily. Then a cold light flashed in his eyes. Once the dukedom war starts, I will kill at least 80% of the officials in the main hall. Yichen liked to recruit historical generals and historical civil officials. All the civil and military officials in the hall had such identities. Unfortunately, they did not meet Yichen's criteria for recruiting subordinates. Otherwise, Yichen would not have thought this way. Time slowly passed, and the banquet ended in a lively atmosphere. Zhongli took the initiative to send the guests off, while Yichen went directly to the back residence. Sending the guests off was a necessary etiquette, but it was not very suitable for Yichen. Because Yichen's status was higher than all the other officials, he did not need to do this personally. The back residence of Embark Estate. Yichen looked at the houses on the left and right, and his lips curled up involuntarily. They had just gotten married. It was better to have one at a time. Thinking of this, Yichen went straight to the house on the left where the Qiao was. 2 hours later, Yichen went to Xiao Qiao's house in high spirits. Yichen was enjoying himself here, but Qiao Ningfu and Yuan Xiao, who had left Embark Estate, were not so happy. Qiao Ningfu's residence in Luoyang. Xiao Chong, is your right arm really crippled? Qiao Ningfu asked in disbelief as he looked at Xiahou Chun's ferocious face. When Xiahou Chun heard this, he nodded heavily and said, "That's right. Yes, my lord. Damn you, eh?" Hearing this, Qiao Ningfu's gloomy face twisted as he roared. What the hell? As soon as Qiao Ningfu finished speaking, Xiahou Yuan, who was in the hall, suddenly opened his eyes and bowed. My lord, Yuan, bring some men to the relay station and destroy the Abu tribe. No. When Qiao Ningfu heard this, he immediately came back to his senses and raised his hand to shout, My lord. When Xiahou Yuan heard this, he immediately panicked and shouted. When Xiahou Chun heard this, he looked at Xiahou Yuan with great emotion and said, Thank you. Abu's martial prowess is exceptional. His Bing province wolf cavalry is extremely strong. Even if you bring the ferocious cavalry, you might not be able to take him down. At this moment, Qiao Ningfu suddenly looked at Xiahou Chun and asked, Xiao Chong, can you trust me? When Xiahou Chun heard this, he was stunned and hurriedly asked, Why do you say that, my lord? How can I not trust you, my lord? When Qiao Ningfu heard this, he glanced at Xiahou Chun and said seriously, F***CK. I can swear to the heavens that if I succeed in the future, I will definitely behead that brat Abu. When Xiahou Chun heard Qiao Ningfu's impassioned words, he was stunned at first. Then, his expression changed, but he quickly regained his composure. In the next second, Xiahou Chun bowed to Qiao Ningfu and said, Chun, trust me, my lord. At first glance, Qiao Ningfu seemed to be avenging Xiahou Chun, but in reality, there was another layer of meaning. To be precise, Qiao Ningfu had the intention of recruiting Abu. Otherwise, Qiao Ningfu wouldn't have said that he would behead Abu if he succeeded in the future. It was also because Xiahou Chun understood the meaning behind Qiao Ningfu's words that his expression changed drastically. This was something that couldn't be helped. Anyone who realized that someone close to them wanted to recruit their enemy and not avenge them would be happy. Of course, if Xiahou Chun wasn't loyal to Qiao Ningfu and was Qiao Ningfu's younger brother, Xiahou Chun would have fallen out with him long ago. In Yuan Xiao's courtyard in Luoyang. After hearing Chunyu Qiong's report, Yuan Xiao's expression darkened, and he frowned and shouted, You said your arm is crippled? When Chunyu Qiong heard this, She nodded with a ferocious expression, then bowed and said, "Reporting to my lord, I have already found many doctors to examine it." "Is indeed so." After hearing Chunyu Qiong's confirmation, Yuan Shao's expression darkened again, and he shouted angrily, "Trash! You can't even withstand a few moves, and your arm was crippled. What use do I have for you?" When Chunyu Qiong heard this, she was stunned. Then, she looked at Yuan Shao in disbelief and shouted, "My lord, I—" Before Chunyu Qiong could finish, she was interrupted by Yuan Shao. Scram! 2 places, 2 lords, 2 attitudes. If players saw this scene, they would definitely curse Yuan Shao for being shameless and Chao Ningfu for being treacherous. Then, they would take the opportunity to recruit Chunyu Qiong and Xiahou Chun. After all, Chao Ningfu and Yuan Shao's actions had hurt Xiahou Chun and Chunyu Qiong's hearts. In the backyard of Yu of Beech's residence. After spending 2 hours in Xiao Qiao's room, Yi Chun brought the blushing to Qiao and Xiao Qiao back to the reincarnation immortal city. The world war was about to begin, and Yi Chun didn't want to leave to Qiao and Xiao Qiao in Luoyang. After Yi Chun settled Big Qiao and Little Qiao down, he passed on the cultivation techniques that Zhao Yu, Chan Wan, and the other girls had learned to Big Qiao and Little Qiao. Then, he gave the 2 girls a magic treasure sword each and a storage ring each. As for cultivation resources, such as supreme-grade spiritual stones, Yi Chun also prepared a set for the Qiao and Xiao Qiao. Of course, Yi Chun didn't neglect the Tao Comprehension Tea that could increase one's life and the creation chi in the cauldron of heaven and earth that could improve one's constitution. After settling to Qiao and Xiao Qiao's matters, Yi Chun finally brought all of his subordinates back to the reincarnation immortal city. In the main hall of the city lord's residence in the reincarnation immortal city, Yi Chun glanced at his subordinates, who had taken their seats, and asked, "What are you doing? Are you all ready?" "We're always ready." Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Gu Yi, Guan Er, Gao Shun, Zhang San, Li Yuanba, Zhang Liao, and the other generals and officials stood up and bowed to Yi Chun. When Yi Chun heard this, he nodded in satisfaction and said, "That's right. Pass down my order. Rest well tonight. Tomorrow morning, the reincarnation immortal city will officially set off for the overseas expedition." "Yes, my lord." Guan Er, Dian Xiong, Gu Yi, Guan Er, Gao Shun, Zhang San, Li Yuanba, and the others' eyes lit up when they heard this. Then they bowed and said loudly. Yi Chun nodded with a smile. Then, with a thought, the space in front of him distorted instantly. After taking a look at the distorted space, Yi Chun stepped into it and disappeared. Chapter 884. Luoyang, Yu of Beech's residence. Space suddenly distorted. Then, Yi Chun, who had left for a while, stepped out and appeared here. These maids were obedient and did not come over on their own. Otherwise, it would have been chaotic. When Yi Chun entered the bridal chamber, he did not let the maids serve in the back because he wanted to bring Big Qiao and Little Qiao back to reincarnation immortal city. If the maids did not listen to Yi Chun's orders and secretly came over check, they would definitely discover that Yi Chun, Big Qiao, and Little Qiao were not there. Then it would be lively. It cannot be helped. The Great Han Empire's first prince and 2 princesses had mysteriously disappeared on their wedding night. It was hard not to cause a stir. These maids were very obedient. He could get them to reincarnation immortal city, but now he had to make a trip to Zhang Li's residence and asked him to explain to Lu Hong why Big Qiao and Little Qiao were not allowed to return in 3 days. Returning to one's home was a marriage custom since ancient times. It was also known as returning to one's parents after 3 days of marriage. Yi Chun did not have time to wait for 3 days. The world war would start tomorrow. Yi Chun did not want to delay his plan to seize the fate of the foreign countries because of returning to one's home. Of course, Yi Chun did not want Big Qiao and Little Qiao to stay in Luoyang alone, because once the world war started, the foreign players would openly attack the Great Han Empire or sneak in. The former was open and there was nothing to worry about. The latter was different. These bastards specialized in assassination. As for the targets of assassination, they would be famous people in the Great Han Empire who did not have any martial arts. Yichen did not want Big Xiao and Little Xiao to be assassinated in Luoyang from time to time. Otherwise, Yichun would not have brought Big Xiao and Little Xiao back to Reincarnation Immortal City directly after entering the bridal chamber. Moreover, Lu Hong was not the real father of De Xiao and Xiao Xiao. There was no need to go through such formalities in order to fulfill this marriage custom. Of course, there was no need to say that it wasn't necessary. What needed to be explained still needed to be explained. After all, Lu Hong was the emperor, and De Xiao and Xiao Xiao were her adopted daughters. If Yichun didn't even explain, it would be strange if Lu Hong didn't explode. Thinking of this, Yichun went straight to the front yard and called for the servants to prepare the carriage. Then, he headed towards Zhang Li's mansion. At this moment, it was the middle of the night. Other than groups of players, there was not a single civilian on the streets. The sudden departure of Yi Chen's luxurious carriage immediately attracted the attention of the players. Quick, look at the direction that the carriage is coming from. Is it you of Beech's carriage? It should be. It's already so late. Why did you of Gojoseon suddenly go out? Is there need to think? Don't forget that the World War will officially begin tomorrow. Yu of Gojoseon must be making preparations for this. Damn, Yu of Gojoseon can't be leaving Luoyang directly, right? I stayed in Luoyang to reap some benefits from following Yu of Gojoseon. I don't think so. Yu of Gojoseon just got married. Even if he were to leave, he would have to wait for at least 3 days. Forget it. Have you forgotten that King Yu of the Underworld is just like us? He's also a player. Once the World War starts, there will be opportunities everywhere. Why would King Yu of the Underworld miss this opportunity just because he returned home? Definitely not. Anyway, that's what I feel. Otherwise, I wouldn't be staying up late at night to wait for Yu of Gojoseon to make his move. Damn, didn't you just say that it was a long night and you weren't in the mood to sleep? So you went out for a stroll? Damn, it's not against the law. Why do you care what I say? Hee, I think those who are loitering on the streets now are waiting for Yu of Gojoseon to make his move. Definitely. Otherwise, they would be so annoyed that they would be out on the streets late at night. Where do you think Yu of Gojoseon is going to leave the Great Han Empire? What do you think his first stop will be? I think it will be Japan. Those Japanese, as long as they are descendants of the Yellow Emperor, all of them hate him. I feel the same way too. Creak, creak, the luxurious carriage kept moving forward. Yi Chun, who was sitting in the carriage, couldn't help but raise his eyebrows when he heard the players discussing. Follow me. The more, the better. This will save me a lot of trouble. Once the World War began, Yi Chen's goal, apart from training his troops and plundering good items, was to plunder the providence of the overseas countries. In order to do that, not only did he have to engage in a war of extermination, but he also had to prevent the counterattack of the overseas players. Yi Chun could easily do the former, and Yi Chun could also do the latter. However, Yi Chun would need to divide his troops and delay Yi Chen's time. However, with an army of players following him, it was different. Yi Chun could take out his forces and continue attacking other countries. He did not need to focus on one or a few countries. Tomorrow, after I take down 3 Immortal Island, I'll tell all the players where my first stop is. Then, I'll get them to come and clean up the mess. Thinking of this, Yi Chun couldn't help but smirk. Then, he closed his eyes and continued to rest. As the luxurious carriage moved forward, more and more players noticed Yi Chun. Before long, the players on the streets of Luoyang gradually became excited. This was because all the players made a judgment about Yi Chen's sudden departure on his wedding night. That was that Yi Chun, the #1 player in the Great Han Empire, was making his final preparations. This was like a dose of chicken blood to the players who wanted to follow Yi Chun and reap the benefits. Time passed slowly. When Yi Chen's carriage arrived at Zhang Li's residence, the coachman stopped the carriage and hurriedly ran to knock on the door. Not long after, the door to Zhang Li's residence opened with a creak. Then, an angry servant stuck his head out. Just as he was about to curse, he saw Yi Chen's carriage, Prince Yu of Han's carriage. At this moment, The angry servant swallowed the words he wanted to say and put on an incomparably flattering smile. When Yi Chen's coachman saw this, he straightened his back and shouted, "What are you going to do? Go and report that Lord Yu of Beach has come to visit." "Please wait a moment. Please wait a moment. I'll go and report." When the servant of Zhang Li's residence heard this, he hurriedly nodded his head and replied. After he finished speaking, he bowed towards Yi Chen's carriage, after which he turned around and walked into the courtyard. Before long, Zhang Li ran out barefooted. As soon as he walked out, he bowed to Yi Chen's carriage in a flattering manner. This servant pays respects to Lord Yu of Beach. Chapter 885. Zhang Li's voice was very respectful, very cordial, and also very flattering. Compared to his previous attitude towards Yi Chen, it was clearly a step closer. The reason for Zhang Li's cordial attitude was that Yi Chen had unhesitatingly agreed to let Zhang Li host the wedding banquet and even allowed Zhang Li to stay by his side and serve him. In Zhang Li's view, Yi Chen's actions were ironclad proof that Zhang Li considered him one of his own. It was precisely for this reason that Zhang Li would go out barefoot in the middle of the night to welcome Yi Chen. Sitting in the carriage, Yi Chen couldn't help but frown when he heard Zhang Li's unique eunuch voice. Eunuch is such a disgusting profession. Once I unify the world, I'll definitely abolish it. Thinking of this, Yi Chen let out a long sigh and got out of the carriage. As soon as Yi Chen got out of the carriage, Zhang Li bowed with a flattering expression and said, "Lord Yu of Beach, please come with me." When Yi Chen heard this, he chuckled and nodded, after which he walked straight into Zhang Li's mansion. Seeing that Yi Chen didn't treat him as an outsider at all, Zhang Li's smile widened. He then followed behind Yi Chen. After arriving at the main hall and taking a seat, Zhang Li ordered people to bring tea, pastries, and a plate of fruit. Only then did he look at Yi Chen and ask, "Lord Yu of Beach, do you have something you want this servant to do for you?" If it was before, Zhang Li wouldn't have acted like a servant. But now, Zhang Li was perfectly willing to act like this, because Yi Chen was truly one of his own, and the kind that had been verified. Facing such an existence, Zhang Li naturally wouldn't speak to Yi Chen in an almost equal tone like before, because if that was the case, it would be fine for a short period of time, but as time went on, it would easily make Yi Chen unhappy. Then, the relationship between Yi Chen and Zhang Li would be broken. Of course, this was what Zhang Li thought. However, it was precisely because Zhang Li didn't want to see this result that he lowered his attitude. It couldn't be helped. Yi Chen was Yu of Beach of the Great Han Empire. He was also the general of agile cavalry who had quelled the Golden Turban Rebellion and the Demon Race's invasion. With Yi Chen, one of his own people, Zhang Li, a eunuch, had enough confidence to do whatever he wanted in the imperial court. The group of eunuchs behind him did the same. When Yi Chen heard Zhang Li's question, he chuckled and nodded. He then picked up his teacup and took a sip of tea. When Zhang Li saw this, he immediately smiled flatteringly and said, "You're right. If there's anything you of Beach, you could just send a servant to pass on a message. There's no need for you to come in person." When Yi Chen heard Zhang Li's words, he put the teacup back on the plate on the table and looked at Zhang Li. "If I came here directly, not only would I be able to clarify the matter, but I would also be able to see Zhang Changshi. This is killing two birds with one stone. Could it be that Zhang Changshi doesn't want to see me visit? You of Beach, your words are too much for this servant. This servant is more than happy to see you. How can I not like it?" Zhang Li immediately cried out aggrievedly when he heard this. When Yi Chen heard this, he couldn't help but feel goosebumps rise all over his body. Damn it, the lethality of this damned eunuch is really not to be trifled with. When he thought of this, Yi Chen forcibly resisted the urge to slap Zhang Li. He then looked at Zhang Li with a smile and said, "Zhang Changshi, I'm just joking. You can't take it seriously." When Yi Chen finished speaking, Zhang Li immediately gave Yi Chen a resentful look, which made Yi Chen want to slap him again. After suppressing the urge to slap Zhang Li again, Yi Chen laughed and said, "Haha, Zhang Li, you're a genius. Zhang Changshi, I don't have much time left. I have no choice but to come here this time. I hope that Zhang Changshe can lend me a hand. You have beaked, no matter what it is. As long as you say it, this servant will go through water and tread on fire for you of beach. When Zhongli heard this, he was slightly stunned, and then said seriously. When Yichen heard this, his expression suddenly became serious, and he said, "Just now, I received a secret report that the border barrier has been loosening for more than half a month. It is estimated that the border barrier will disappear tomorrow. At that time, the barbarian country will definitely invade my great Han dynasty. Therefore, I must immediately set off for Yuzhou and guard the border." What? When Zhongli heard this, he was stunned and then shouted in shock. Zhongli was a native of the Three Kingdoms Novice region. This was true, but he knew about the border barrier. In Yi Chen's previous life, when the border barrier disappeared, the emperor of the Great Han Empire, Lu Hong, issued an imperial edict because of the disappearance of the border barrier. If Yi Chen didn't know about this, he wouldn't have used this as an excuse to ask Zhang Li for help. Yi Chen glanced at the indescribably shocked Zhang Li and then nodded. Zhang Changshe didn't hear wrong. The border barrier will disappear tomorrow. It is because of this that I want Zhang Changshe to explain to His Majesty why I suddenly left without saying goodbye. This is a small matter. When Zhongli heard this, he immediately came back to his senses and said, "But this is a small matter." In the next second, Zhongli looked at Yi Chen with a dazed expression and then asked, You have beaked want to take the two princesses and leave Luoyang together?" When Yi Chen heard this, he nodded and said, "That's right. I just got married, and I really can't bear to part with the two princesses. Otherwise, I wouldn't have come in the middle of the night to disturb Zhang Changshe." When Zhongli heard this, his face immediately froze. Zhongli had no choice but to act this way. After all, the marriage custom of returning to peace couldn't be avoided, especially for the imperial family. But now, this Prince Yu of Han, Yi Chen, actually wanted Zhang Li to run to Lu Hong and explain the reason why the two princesses couldn't return to peace. This request was simply asking Zhang Li to run into the muzzle of Lu Hong's gun without wearing any armor. Yi Chen glanced at the dumbfounded Zhang Li and said, "Zhang Changshe, I know this is a bit excessive, but I really can't bear to part with the two princesses. Please help Zhang Changshe." When Zhang Li heard this, he looked resentfully at Yi Chen. At this moment, Yi Chen waved his right hand, and 200 chests of purple gold coins and 200 chests of rare treasures instantly appeared in the courtyard of Zhang Li's residence. When Zhang Li saw this, he was stunned for a moment before his eyes suddenly lit up. In the next second, Zhang Li directly bowed to Yi Chen. "Rest assured, Lord Yu of Beach, leave this matter to this servant." Chapter 886. After hearing Zhang Li's words, Yi Chen chuckled and nodded his head. He then said, "In that case, I'll have to trouble Zhang Changshe." What Yi Chen wanted Zhang Li to do was actually to make things difficult for Zhang Li. Otherwise, Zhang Li would not have stiffened after hearing Yi Chen's words. Of course, nothing in this world was difficult for those who set their mind to it. If he wanted to settle things with Zhang Li, Yi Chen only needed to take out enough bargaining chips. At this moment, money was the bargaining chip, and the result was obvious: success. As for whether or not Zhang Li could successfully persuade Lu Hong, Yi Chen was not worried at all. This was because a portion of the money that Yi Chen took out would definitely end up in Lu Hong's hands. In addition, the borders of the country are open, and the borders are unstable. We urgently need generals to guard the borders. Lu Hong would not be angry at Yi Chen not bringing Princess Zhaoyang Daqiao and Princess Changel Xiaoqiao back to the country, nor would he blame Yi Chen. After all, what Yi Chen had displayed was loyalty to the country and deep affection for his wife. The former showed that Yi Chen was a loyal subject, while the latter showed that Yi Chen was a good son-in-law. Regardless of which, Lu Hong would be happy to see. As a result, Yi Chen was not worried that this plan would fail and cause Lu Hong to be dissatisfied or even angry. As soon as Yi Chen finished speaking, Zhongli immediately bowed incomparably flatteringly and said, "Lord, you of Beach, rest assured. This servant will definitely not disappoint you. Since that is the case, this prince will take his leave." Hearing this, Yi Chen chuckled and nodded before speaking. Hearing this, Zhongli hastily got up and said, "This servant will see you of Beak out." When Yi Chen heard this, he chuckled and nodded. Then he got up and walked out. After arriving at the main street, Yi Chen glanced at the players watching from afar. He then boarded a horse carriage and headed towards Yu of Beak's mansion. Zhongli, who had just come out to send Yi Chen off, saw this and immediately bowed towards the carriage in which Yi Chen was leaving. "Farewell, Lord Yu of Beach." Zhongli's humble and abnormal behavior instantly attracted the attention of the players on the street. Damn, why is Zhongli so respectful towards Yi Yu of Gojoseon? Isn't he very awesome? He doesn't even care about He-Jin. Don't forget who it is that made Zhongli so respectful. Hee. Yi Yu of Gojoseon is Yi Yu of Gojoseon. What is impossible for others is a piece of cake for Yi Yu of Gojoseon. Don't talk nonsense. Let's hurry up and follow. I feel that Yi Yu of Gojoseon is about to take action. Otherwise, he wouldn't have specially gone out to look for that damned eunuch Zhongli on his wedding night. That's what I feel too. As long as we can follow Yi Yu of Gojoseon, I guarantee that we will reap great benefits this time. Nonsense. If it's not like that, who would be out on the streets in the middle of the night to feel the cold wind? Sigh. It's a pity that Yi Yu of Gojoseon didn't say which kingdom he would attack first. Otherwise, we wouldn't have to wait in the middle of the night. That's right, but it's okay to suffer a little. Anyway, we'll reap the benefits very soon. That's right. Killing foreign players gives EXP. Just this point alone is worth it. Moreover, Yi Yu of Gojoseon will discard a lot of equipment and skills that he doesn't care about. That's right. During the Golden Turban Rebellion, many people relied on picking up trash behind Yi Yu of Gojoseon to become rich. The players chatted and followed Yi Chen's carriage to Yu of Beak's residence. Yi Chen, who was sitting in the carriage, couldn't help but raise his eyebrows when he noticed the players' actions. Not bad, not bad. Follow them. The more, the better. Thinking of this, Yi Chen couldn't help but smirk. Time passed slowly. When Yi Chen returned to Yu of Beak's residence, he gathered all the maidservants in Yu of Beak's residence and brought them back to Reincarnation Immortal City. The next day, when the sun had just risen, Yi Chen dressed up with the help of Zhao Yu, Chan Wan, Kai Mei De Qiao, Xiao Qiao, Mi Zhen, and the 5 beautiful Jin sisters. Then, he went straight to the drill ground. At the drill ground of Reincarnation Immortal City, the drill ground was filled with spears and flags. At this moment, Yi Chen's subordinates and 41 million soldiers of Reincarnation Immortal City were motionless on the drill ground, waiting for Yi Chen's arrival. When Yi Chen flew over and landed on the high platform in the drill ground, Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Gui Yi, Guan Er, Zhang San, Li Yuanba, Zhang Liao, Zhang He, Chu Yi, Gaolan, Tian Feng, and the other officials and generals bowed to Yi Chen and said loudly, "Greetings, Lord." When Yi Chen heard this, he chuckled and nodded his head. At this moment, the sound of people kneeling down on one knee could be heard. Swoosh! In the next second, 41 million soldiers of Reincarnation Immortal City shouted in unison, "Greetings, Lord." 41 million soldiers of Reincarnation Immortal City shouted in unison. Their voices were like thunder that shook the heavens and earth. Yi Chen glanced at the soldiers of Reincarnation Immortal City and nodded with satisfaction. He then shouted, "The border of the Great Wall will be removed. Today, the border barrier will be removed. At that time, the foreign barbarians will invade our great Han Empire, plundering our people and plundering our wealth. What will you do? Fight, fight, fight." 41 million soldiers of Reincarnation Immortal City raised the spears in their hands and shouted at the top of their lungs. At this moment, violent fighting spirit burst out from the 41 million soldiers of Reincarnation Immortal City and soared into the sky with a loud boom. Yi Chen nodded with satisfaction when he sensed the fighting spirit of the two. 41 million soldiers of reincarnation immortal city. He then shouted, "The strongest defense is to defend. The strongest defense is to take the initiative to attack. I want to take the initiative to go overseas and kill all the barbarians there. Are you willing to go with me?" "Yes, yes, yes." 2. 41 million soldiers of reincarnation immortal city shouted at the top of their lungs, causing the air to vibrate violently. "Very well. Tell me, how should I deal with the barbarians from overseas?" Yi Chen's eyes widened when he heard this, and then he shouted, "Kill! Kill! Kill!" Deafening battle cries could be heard again. At this moment, a strong killing intent burst out from the two. 41 million soldiers of reincarnation immortal city and soared into the sky. Yi Chen nodded with satisfaction when he saw this. He then looked at Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Guan Er, Zhang San, Li Yuanba, Zhang Liao, Zhang He, Gao Shun, and the other generals and shouted, "Lead your troops out of the city and be on standby." "Yes, Master." Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Guan Er, Zhang San, Li Yuanba, Huang Sheng, Huang Su, Zhang Liao, Zhang He, Gan Ning, and the other generals bowed and saluted Yi Chen loudly. Yi Chen nodded when he heard this. He then looked at Gui Yi, Tian Feng, Chen Gong, Jia Su, and Pang Tong and shouted, "You will be the military advisors of Reincarnation Immortal City." Chapter 887. Gui Yi, Tian Feng, Chen Gong, Pang Tong, and Jia Su straightened their faces upon hearing this. They bowed and said loudly, "Yes, my lord." They were historical civil officials, super strategists who were proficient in all kinds of military tactics. However, they were ordered by Yi Chen to guard the Reincarnation Immortal City. If the historical civil officials who didn't know Yi Chen and the Reincarnation Immortal City heard this, they would definitely be dumbfounded. After all, strategists were supposed to follow the army into battle. Why would they stay in the city? In fact, Gui Yi, Tian Feng, Chen Gong, Pang Tong, and Jia Su didn't need to follow the army into battle. The reason was simple. Gui Yi's military strategists could map the battlefield. To be more precise, Gui Yi could control the entire battlefield by himself. With Tian Feng, Chen Gong, Pang Tong, and Jia Su's help, he could control the entire battlefield from Reincarnation Immortal City. He could strengthen the Reincarnation Immortal City's army, set up formations, and destroy the enemy's formations. Of course, he wouldn't be able to control the battlefield on such a large scale in the past, but things were different now. He had obtained the Chaos Talisman from Yi Chen, and he had also obtained the immortal spiritual body after being modified by the creation Qi. It was easy for Yi to control the battlefield on such a large scale. That was why Yi, Tian Feng, Chen Gong, Pang Tong, Jia Su didn't need to go to the battlefield personally. Hearing this, Yi Chen nodded his head in satisfaction. Then, with a thought, the space in front of the Reincarnation Fairy Island that was floating above the clouds suddenly distorted. In the next second, Reincarnation Immortal Island, which carried Reincarnation Immortal City and Reincarnation Forest, flew into the distorted space and disappeared. 20 nautical miles to the east of the Eastern Sea, the space suddenly distorted. Then, Reincarnation Immortal Island appeared out of nowhere. Reincarnation Immortal City, Drill Ground. Yi Chen, who had brought the Reincarnation Fairy Island to the East Sea, soared into the air and flew out of the Reincarnation Fairy Island. Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Guan Er, Zhao Meng, Zhang San, Gao Shun, Gao Lan, Chu, Li Yuanba, Gan Ning, Zhang Liao, Huang Sheng, Huang Su, and the other generals all turned to look at their respective commanders. "Leave the city." "Yes, General." After that, the army of the Reincarnation Immortal City left the drill ground one by one and headed towards the Reincarnation Valley. When Gui Yi, Chen Gong, Tian Feng, Pang Tong, and Jia Su saw this, they exchanged a smile and headed towards the Castellan Manor. The large-scale deployment of the Reincarnation Immortal City's army quickly attracted the attention of the citizens of the Reincarnation Immortal City. Instantly, the citizens went to the streets to send off the army of the Reincarnation Immortal City. Then, 3 huge islands surrounded by immortal chi that were not far away from each other instantly appeared above the originally empty sea. Seeing this, Yichen could not help but raise his eyebrows. The 3 immortal islands appeared. Just as Yichen thought of this, a world announcement suddenly sounded. Ding! The special treasure land, 3 Immortal Island, has been opened by player Yichen. All players can go there to search for treasures. The location is the East Sea. The world announcement was repeated 3 times in a row, instantly causing an uproar in the world channel. Damn! What's going on? Yichen did not go to the border, but went to the East Sea to search for treasures? Damn, that's not important. What's important is that Yichen found the 3 Immortal Island and opened it. Damn, what does the 3 Immortal Island do? Can someone explain to me? Are you stupid? The 3 Immortal Island has the word immortal in it. Can it be simple? Damn, what are you waiting for? Go and snatch it. Damn, hurry up and go there now. You can still get some good stuff. Idiot, if you want to snatch it, go ahead. Don't you know who opened the 3 Immortal Island? How dare you talk nonsense? Hee, I won't go anyway. I'm still waiting to follow Boss Yichen. Forget it. Even if you go, you won't get anything. Don't forget, with Yichen's current realm, no matter who goes there, the result will be the same. They will be courting death. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.